before we get started, we have a guest speaker. He's a little short, so he's on his dad's shoulders. In the meantime, if you have a communication device, a cell phone of some sort, please silence it. Put it on vibrate or something so it doesn't interrupt the meeting.
Sound check? Councilors, if we could start with a sound check, starting with Councilor Eigenman.
Earl's 11.
Vogel, number 9.
Tonka 8. Connell 7.
Clerk 6.
O'Brien 5.
Zede 4.
Chiaretta 3. Evelyn 2.
Con number 1.
Wait. Go get it, Larry. Fine. Or the clerk does it. Leave it upstairs. When the meeting begins. How many names do we have?
How many on a page? 12.
Okay. 1 minute each. Well, that's my packet right there. Just pack it upstairs.
Hi.
What am I doing, do you know? I know. Do not disturb.
I'd like to start with a moment of silence for 4 individuals who have passed away recently. First is James Stackpole Abiel, descendant of Oliver Wolcott, who is a signer of the Declaration of Independence, the great-great-great-grandson of Theophilus Parsons, who has passed away recently, who was the first Chief Justice of the Massachusetts State Supreme Court. Barbara Turner Emeth. The Emeth family is well known in Newburyport. She is the wife and mother of school teachers, and I believe the sister of a firefighter. George F. Cooper has also passed away recently, and I wish to remember Mr. Cooper. And a non-resident, Francis Mickey Culver, who was instrumental in bringing the Essex County Greenbelt into its present status, which has protected so much of our public lands, both in Newburyport and the surrounding communities. A wonderful guy and a good friend of mine. Would you join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ask the clerk to call the order, please.
Councilor Junta.
Present.
Councilor Khan.
Present.
Councilor O'Brien. Here. Councilor Shan.
Present.
Councilor Tontar.
Present.
Councilor Vogel.
Present.
Councilor Z.
Here.
Councilor Devlin.
Here.
Councilor Earl.
Present.
Councilor Agaman. Council President.
Present. Are there any late file items?
There are no true late file items. There are two information items. One, safe routes to schools. And two, there's suggested language for Order 72, which will be coming out of committee.
All right, so order 72. For informational purposes, they're on your desks. We've had a recent meeting on safe routes to schools. I think that went pretty well. I know this is a little bit unusual, but we have a special guest and her family, Catherine O'Connor Ives, who's been our state senator for how many years, Katie? 6 years. And she's been serving with distinction, and we'd like to call her to the microphone with Ronan and Jeff. Join us. Come on up. Yeah.
Nomination for Senator Kathleen O'Connor Ives. The City of Newburyport hereby wishes to extend our gratitude for your 6 years of service as Senator for the 1st Essex District. Through your deep commitment and dedication, you have helped to enhance our progress and quality of life for all. Now, therefore, I, Donna D. Holiday, Mayor of the City of Newburyport, speaking for its residents, do hereby extend our heartfelt appreciation to you as we proclaim Tuesday, December 11th, 2018, Senator Kathleen O'Connor Ives Day in the City of Newburyport. Given under my hand and seal this day, Donna D. Holiday, Mayor, and signed by all of our city councilors as well as our city clerk.
Videographer.
Katie, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, President Connell. Yeah, we'll definitely bring those home. I appreciate the opportunity to say thank you. I know that you're thanking me. I kind of wanted to quietly, go into the sunset. But I think it is fitting when I thought about it, because I was hemming and hawing, right, about whether or not to do something. And the reason why I opted to is because my political life and my public life started right here. That's right.
Sharif's seat, yes.
Right there. And everybody made a lot of memories with me. We had a lot of long nights, a lot of friendship, and a lot of steadfast support that actually launched me into being able to run for state senate, because we are a tiny little city, but we were able to do it. And for 6 years, when I think about it, there at the geographical center from which all points are measured in the state, people would refer to me as the gentle lady from Newburyport, and that was an honor because we can't call each other by names, and I would refer to my colleague as the gentleman from Gloucester, etc. But for that amount of time, Newburyport was on the map, and it was a real pleasure to do the work. I have an amazing team. I hope they all land somewhere because they deserve it. I'm sure that many of you have interfaced with them. And I'll be there until January 1. So I thank you. It's an elected office, and it's been a real honor. And I'm going to take a little break, but thank you. I appreciate it.
Get some babies. I see you, bud. Give me 5. That's right.
Have a fun meeting.
Can I go with you?
And of course, I said Catherine, didn't I? Kathleen. Gosh. You think I'd know? We sat next to one another for 2 terms. All right. And it was a pleasure to work with her on the council and to work with her as senator. Well, we have public comment. There are 45 people who have signed up tonight. And to count them all, I'd have to take my shoes off, and I'd only, my fingers and toes get to half that number. So what I'd like to do is to give each person 1 minute. 10 seconds. And I will cut you down because there are so many people here who wish to speak. We know that we have, there are so many familiar faces here, and familiar names. Faces because we've seen you at our meetings, and appreciate the comments that you've made previously on pot, for the most part.
Safe schools.
And some of your names I associate with emails, some of which were civil, some of which were not. But please, I'm going to ask this of the entire room. Applause, hoots, hollers, hisses, rotted fruit flying around does not belong here, okay? It just impedes public discourse, makes it harder for the members to hear what you have to say, and they do want to hear what you have to say. But I ask you to adhere to a 1-minute limit. If someone has said something with which you agree, when your term comes up, say, I agree with her, I agree with him, and we'll get the message. So unless it's something unique that we have not previously heard, please respect the constraints of time, and we'll all get moving along and get through our agenda tonight at a reasonable pace. First up is Patty Daniels.
Patty Daniels, Love Street, Newburyport. It is not always easy to stand up and oppose something that is popular by many. I moved to this town in 1981. I've never seen such a divisive issue as marijuana in this town. I've been called names. I've had a lot of things said about me. I have worked for over 35 years, federal probation, parole, different agencies. I do see marijuana as a gateway drug. And I have stated that in my family, you can be addicted to many things. It has happened to my own family. This is from the website of the Cannabis Commission. Overconsumption of edibles is very unpleasant and has caused many to seek medical help for consuming too much cannabis. The effects of edibles is more serious than smoking marijuana. It also says, do not mix with other substances. OUI THC cannot be determined by a breathalyzer. The methods that are used are follicles, blood, urine, saliva. There is no equivalent. The police are not able to determine this, and they cannot. They would have to call a drug expert to.
I'm
Thank
going
you.
to have to ask the next speaker. Thank you,
Thank
Patty.
you.
Tom Coulter-John.
Tom Coulter-John, 64 Federal Street, co-president of the Newburyport Preservation Trust. Council President and members of the council, I'll keep it short. The Safe Routes to School High Street project needs material and design mitigation. Only you can make that happen. We urge your full consideration of the suggestions we have made. Historic High Street deserves no less than the very best improvements you can make to this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Reggie Bacon.
That's Reginald Bacon.
Reginald, excuse me.
Reggie is what my grandmother's parakeet used to call me. He's no longer with us. My name is Reg Bacon. I live at 21 Strong Street. I'm here to speak about the Safe Routes to Schools project on High Street. In the interest of 1 minute cogency, I'm sticking to the script. First, let me be clear, I don't want this or anything else on any special ballot. The Safe Routes to School project sounds just as lovable as motherhood and apple pie. It's obvious we need traffic calming on High Street. Thankfully, most of the over-the-top design features originally proposed have been modified to the point of my resigned acceptance. But in my view, this project has skirted proper public process. In more than 2 years of the city driving this through with the state DOT to its current 100% design stage, there has just been one properly posted official public hearing that invited and recorded public comment. There have been a number of meetings open to the public, some that even tolerated public perception, but just one public hearing. So I ask that you take time to evaluate procedures for this and future projects. In my view, there has to be more local public input because we all need to be citizen stewards of our public assets. Thank you.
Thank you, Reg.
Thank you.
Connie Preston.
Connie Preston, Atwood Street. First of all, I am here to answer any questions you may have about the tree commission's free cash request. And then secondly, you've all seen me for the whole year now. I have been to every meeting where we have discussed the ballot question on the agenda and spoken at every one of them and sent you many, many letters. You're very clear on my position against the ballot, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. Jane Snow.
Jane Snow, 9 Cobbin Street. This is your last meeting of the 2018 year, and I didn't want to be remiss to say thank you to all of you for the hours and hours that you have put into attending meetings, doing research, listening to all of us either say good things or complain, and it's not always easy. And so I just wanted to take this opportunity to wish you a wonderful holiday season and a happy, healthy new year, and let's hopefully 2019 will be running smoothly and we can put some things behind us. Best of holiday season to all of you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Is that a yes or no? Is that a yes or no? Is that a yes or
Bill
no?
Sales.
To the council, I keep hearing over and over again that the city has voted for laws which permit the retail sale of marijuana. This is patently incorrect and an argument based on false premise. Newburyport has passed question 4 in the 2016 election. So I have 2 questions. Did question 4 in 2016 contain language specific and very clear to allow municipalities to vote on retail restriction subsequent to the election? The answer is an unequivocal yes. Did question 4 in 2016 contain any language whatsoever which indicated that the referendum vote tally would subvert or override any part of the question 4 referendum language? The answer is an unequivocal no. Ladies and gentlemen of the City Council, part of your job is to follow the laws of the state as written. Not allowing a vote is, with all due respect, an abrogation of your duty to follow the laws of the Commonwealth. The law says what it says and doesn't say what it doesn't say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was 24 Rawson Avenue. Peter Ballantyne of 6 Hart Road.
Yes, Peter Ballantyne, 6 Hart Road. I'm asking the council to consider moving forward, allowing a vote for retail marijuana for the people. I believe the vote in 2016 was more of a compassion justice vote. Almost every person that I have talked with tells me the main reason that they voted in 2016 was because they wanted to legalize, decriminalize cannabis use. I asked my own daughter who voted, she's 21, and she says, Dad, that's why I did it. They did not want people to go to jail. That's an admirable and compassionate value. But it was not primarily a vote for retail. Retail cannabis is a totally different value for society to consider. Retail involves marketing and business forces that are trying by nature to increase consumption and increase their profits. And I believe the drafters of the 2016 statewide referendum knew this would be a debatable issue, a value issue for the Commonwealth. So that's why they included in the 2016 referendum a provision for local control, allowing individual towns and cities to opt out of retail. And I believe it's best for a social value, even like retail cannabis, to be decided by the people, by a citywide referendum. It brings unity to a city. This is an emotional issue. You can tell there's lots of people talking about it. So it's good to have the people decide on an issue like this.
I don't mean to be rude, but you're past 1 minute. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Lindy Lamphere.
Lindy Lamphere, 347 High Street. I'm afraid that we will become the beacon for New Hampshire and Maine for retail sale of marijuana because we're one of the first stops heading south on 95. Just like Seabrook has become the beacon for Massachusetts to buy fireworks. There is no regulation once we allow retail because it cannot be kept to 2 locations through zoning. This is not regulated like liquor stores. This should not be about tax dollars that retail sales of marijuana can generate. This is about the safety of Newburyport children. I can't imagine how we will be able to contain the additional traffic and parking that this could generate. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben Schwartz.
Ben Swartz, 105 State Street. So I'm in favor of allowing recreational marijuana dispensaries to operate in Newburyport. I believe it'd be foolish to leave hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue on the table due to fear and misinformation. Opponents, while well-intentioned and caring, are clinging to antiquated views of marijuana consumption that have little basis in reality. I've heard no persuasive arguments that allowing licensed dispensaries to operate in the city will lead to corruption of youth, moral decay, or turn Newburyport into, as one member of the opt-out group put it, a pot mecca. Lastly, if this question is to go to the ballot, I ask City Council to delay a vote until our regularly scheduled municipal election in November 2019 and not hold a low turnout special election that will cost thousands of dollars and not accurately represent the will of the voters. Thank you.
Thank you. Allison Ballantyne.
Allison Ballantyne, 6 Hart Road, Newburyport. Afron Cons and Council, in your explanation today, you explained to me that the moratorium expired as soon as the zoning was approved. I believe it is because of the council's zoning approval that the groundswell of opposition was created. There are 1,500 plus signatures who feel you did not make the right choice. And that is why we're asking for a vote. That is why we're coming to you now to say, we didn't like your decision. We would like a voice to speak. And through this lens, to me, that seems very democratic. That is the way that democracy works, with the people advocating to their representatives that we would like a different outcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Dermott. McDermott, I'm sorry.
Matthew McDermott, 23 Marlborough Street. I'm a father to 3 teenagers in the Newburyport school system. I also happen to run the Newburyport Soccer League for the past 7 years. We sent an email out a couple months back talking about this issue. And when everybody talks about how people have responded to it, it went out to 8,500 email addresses. I didn't get one complaint with someone telling me that we already voted on this. This is already settled matter. I got parents sending me back notes saying that this is something that we should address. I didn't quite understand what that was for, what we were voting on. Much like the gentleman before me talked about, it was more of a decriminalization effort. That's what I heard back from people. Thank you. I think you should vote on this as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Matt, I believe it's Kame on 63 Curzon Mill Road.
Yeah. I just wanted to speak to actually putting us on the ballot in the spring. A few towns in the Commonwealth have gone the route of the citizens petition. And this is when it gets kind of interesting. In those cities and towns that have done this, once the local government realized how divisive the issue was, they quickly sent it on to a vote. It was a politically safe thing to do. We've now engaged in this conversation for, 2 months now? Also, in Newburyport, our town charter, I think, states that the citizens petition with more than 12% of the voters should be sent on to a referendum. So that's another thing to consider. Finally, there's been indications from some of you that a spring election would be poorly attended. You just said upstairs it would be 5%. So we have 15% and counting right now with people that have signed this petition. If the opposition is as strong, that's 30%. I would bet that you guys have not seen this much debate about anything since the parking garage that I talked about last time. So 15 plus 15 is 30. I bet you it's upwards of 50. Put it on the vote in the spring. That's democracy.
Thank you. Amy Roberts.
I'm Amy Roberts from 5 Dexter Street. Thank you for the work that you've done on this issue so far. I'm an individual who happens to support the opt-out movement. I believe we need to vote on the presence of retail marijuana in Newburyport as soon as possible. It's important for us to differentiate that this effort is only about retail. We honor legalized recreational marijuana use for adults of age, and we honor medical marijuana as well. This option to vote on retail was clearly stated on the ballot and expected by many to occur, both initially and as well after the council put forth a ballot referendum in May. Now citizens have spoken via petition. We can't assume how the majority of Newburyporters feel about retail based upon the 55% vote to legalize, or assumptions that we're making about people because of their demographic. Many people, what we discovered when we were out gathering the petitions is that many people who voted for legalization do not want retail. People are really, really concerned. We're seeing major problems acutely in the area across the Commonwealth, but if we also look to Colorado, we're seeing problems that still exist subacutely, kind of like 6 years after this has happened. So we'd like to get this on the vote right away. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Lynn Scow.
Hello, my name is Lynn Scow. I live at 75 High Street. I wrote a wonderful letter to the editor of the Daily News that I was hoping was printed today that laid out all of the things I would like to say now but can't do in 1 minute. But they didn't print it. So I will give you a quick summary of where we are right now, is that in gathering signatures for our petition to put a vote to the question, to put a vote on the question of whether or not we want commercial marijuana in Newburyport. Right now we have over 1,600 signatures on our petition. That is over 15% of the voters in the last election. To put us on the ballot, it would make Newburyport very similar to other towns across the Commonwealth. I think as Councillor Gunta said in the last meeting, 48 other yes towns have had an opt-out vote. 33 of those yes towns voted to opt out of retail and commercial marijuana establishments. Please do the right thing and let us have our vote too.
Thank you, Lynn. Bree Sullivan.
Hi, Brianna Sullivan, 41 Forester Street. You all received a letter from me that kind of outlined a lot of my key issues as far as the timing, the turnout, but I just want to address a few things that people mentioned here tonight. One is the compassionate justice. We didn't know this would be commerce. The ballot question said commerce. So anybody who says they were doing it just to be nice to people who wanted to do it in their homes privately, that doesn't make any sense to me. The ballot in 2016 that you actually saw when you went into the ballot polls said a local vote for on-site consumption. That's not what we're talking about. I understand that the questionnaire said something different that you got in the mail, but that's not what everybody looked at when they voted on this. So any reliance on that doesn't make any sense to me. Somebody else said that it's not going to be regulated like liquor. I think the initiative was literally called Regulate Marijuana Like Liquor. That's exactly what is it intended to do. In fact, more so. You can't even advertise in the window like liquor stores do. So in fact, it's actually more regulation than liquor, which is, I don't think anybody can argue liquor is more harmful. And the final thing is that the Section 1J, which is what's referenced in the proposed ballot question, contemplates banning everything. That's cultivating, testing facilities. So this focus on retail, that's not what the question says. The way it's phrased in that ballot proposition, if anything, needs to be reworked because it's banning everything. And it's confusing. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann Dykes.
Van Dykes, Monroe Street, Newburyport. I guess I view things a little bit differently. I understand the opt-out people's stance. I understand the people that don't want to vote. I don't want to go back to a vote. I actually voted not to legalize it. I think a lot of these arguments we're having here now, we should have had during that vote. It's been voted on, it's legal, it was legalized by an overwhelming majority. So now I'm looking at the council asking to remember your job as council, as stewards of our city. As you need to have the business acumen to think about what's best for Newburyport. Imagine you had to report to your board of directors, you had to say to them, we had a chance to get in on the ground floor of a product that was hot, that was trending, that nobody else had, that would bring incredible revenue to our city, and we passed on it because of moral issues, because we wanted to regulate lifestyle. How responsible is that of you when it's your job? I know you're all very smart, I trust all of you, when it's your job to do what's in the best interest of the city. You're looking at turning down 3% revenue to our general budget. We can't fix our roads and sidewalks or fund our schools, and you're looking at possibly being cut out of state revenue if the legislation passes bills that will not give extra money to opt-out communities. So I'm asking you to think about that from a business perspective.
Thank you. Thank you. Marion Levy.
Marion Levy, Merrimack Street. Basically, I do agree with most of what Ann has said and Bree before, so I won't repeat that. I do not think we need another vote, and I think we should honor not just the spirit, but the law that we have already voted on, and have the retail pawn shops that I think most people who voted for that expected would follow. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Neil Hubecker, I'm sorry.
Neil Hubacher, 15 Howard Street. Thank you all for your service. You are all in receipt of my email from Tuesday, so I won't rehash all 5 amazing points, but I'll just share one story, and that is in July of 2017, the city of Lawrence, their city council voted unanimously to ban the retail pot shops. And I think they're showing a common sense there that we should show. You know, arguably, Lawrence is one of the largest distributors for drugs in New England, so I think they exercised a common sense saying, hey, you know, we're in crisis, we don't want to bring more crisis. And I think that's exactly the kind of common sense by extension that we should show by allowing people to vote for a similar show of common sense. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. John Giordano.
John Giordano, North Atkinson Street. So I've been really torn in that I feel that on a personal level, I'd like us to proceed with retail and really ramp up education programs for youth around cannabis and alcohol consumption. And I think parents could also gain from a little education on alcohol in this community. But I do want to say that I think that it's really up to you to decide if we're going to go ahead with this vote. I just think that there is enough of a fair argument that it is in your hands. But I will say this, if we do go to a vote on this, I think you owe it to the citizens of the city to have the vote in November when a municipal election happens. In this way, your seats are up as well as other municipal issues that may come on the ballot, and also gives the opposition group an opportunity to potentially craft a second question that could actually mandate education around cannabis and alcohol beyond what the, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica Amarosino. I hope I pronounced that correctly, Jessica.
Hi. I'm Dr. Amarosino. I live on High Street, Newburyport, and I just want to bring up an interesting observation that I've picked up on while being involved with this retail marijuana hot topic nationally. Basically, retail marijuana as an agenda item is clearly jamming up our local city time, budget, resources, and energy. It's not going to end with just deciding on zoning, which we appreciate all the hard work you guys have put in. There will be so many other items we have to deal with as a city council and community when working with marijuana retailers to host their business endeavors. How much time and money has our city council already spent on legal fees trying to understand the state and CCC's confusing directives handed over to us on opting in, opting out, zoning, since the 2016 vote to legalize and regulate a commercial retail market? How much time and money has the planning board spent on looking at our land for retail marijuana purposes? Our city council doesn't need this headache. Of course, we didn't think to opt out early on, because where we are now as a city is much different than where we were at with this in January 2018. And finally, you know, when you look at the pro-retail Newburyport residents showing up here to speak about why we should go for it, you know, they're also showing up to other city and town hall meetings pushing their retail marijuana agenda outside of Newburyport. And the question I have is, you know...
Dr. Messina?
Yes.
You're almost a minute and 30 seconds.
Do I have 30 seconds left?
No, you don't.
Done.
Thank you. Thank you. Alicia Berland.
Am I allowed to hand something out, or is that not?
Yep, you may give it to the clerk if you want to distribute it to the members.
Okay. So, well, part of this is, I don't know if you've seen the map of where marijuana has been banned, but I would like to argue that the vote that was taken in 2016 did not reveal enough information about what that would look like for people. The voters in 2016 did not have that map available to them. The map, which is not complete, shows entire regions in Massachusetts banning retail. One of these regions is right below us. The demand in those regions will displace to the cities and towns that will allow retail. Is it correct to assume that the votes in 2016 would like to have that demand come here? As a tourist destination with a walkable downtown, we're an even likelier magnet for this demand. The voters in 2016 may also not have anticipated what retail marijuana would mean in Massachusetts. I provided you today's menu from Netta in Northampton, one of the retail marijuana shops that recently opened. It includes vaping devices and cartridges filled with ultra-pure cannabis oil, which is a powerful distillation of marijuana's essential active ingredients. This form is odorless and tasteless. It's an extremely potent form of THC, the psychoactive element in marijuana. Shatter and wax concentrates are also available on this menu, and they're also super potent.
Your time is up.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Ulrika Girth? And if anyone has something to hand out, I'm going to ask the clerk to gather those things and distribute them in the members' mailboxes as at the close of the meeting tonight. Sometime during the week they'll appear in your mailbox, okay? Go ahead, Ulrika.
Hi, my name is Ulrika Girth, 24 Arlington Street. I find it strange that I have to stand here and beg for something that I just should not have to beg for at all. The right to vote on the opt-out ballot question. I can only assume that you're under pressure to not listen to people like me because there's a ton of money to be made. Not for Newburyport, of course, but for the cannabis industry. That's why I am concerned. There are variables related to retail sales that we as a community need to consider. As an early adopter, the risk of becoming a destination for drug tourists, black market forces drawing on the crowds that come to the stores. We can only look at Colorado, what has happened there. Revenue studies that show it doesn't add up. There's a winner here, but it's not Newburyport. It's crucial for all voters to seriously consider arguments that do not align with the industry narrative. We need to make an informed decision because we will have to live with the results for years to come.
Thank you, Ulrika.
Thank you.
Ken Christie.
Thank you, Ken Christie, 3 Lunch Street. I would just echo the fact that in 2016, we did not vote as a community, as a city, to permit retail establishments here. The people have not spoken. That is absolutely not true. You have to give us the opportunity to speak. If we do not do this, we are changing the makeup of Newburyport without the city having ever spoken and voted on that. And I ask and implore you to bring this to a vote. 1,400 people have signed a petition. Statistically, it is many more people that haven't signed that petition that want to be heard on both sides. And for people that say they know the revenue or the impact, they don't yet. So I think we need to really do this and do it right. And we have not voted for it. And I'm afraid what will happen if we do not have a vote as a community. And I don't think each and every one of you can sit here and say you know that the community is for retail establishments at this point.
Thank
please
you.
give us the opportunity.
Juliet Walker.
Good evening. I want to encourage you to maybe think about a new venue for people to stand in the hallway and listen to comments inside. It's really hard. So I'm here, Juliet Walker, 13 Eagle Street. You know why I'm here. I'm just going to be as brief as possible. Thank you for supporting the High Street Safe Routes to School project. Thank the committee for voting out of committee with that recommendation. A few years ago, a group of parents recognized there was a need to make our roads and sidewalks safer for our children, and by extension, our entire community. We seized an opportunity, and the result, thanks to that effort, is the position we're in now, which is to fix a portion of a historic road that has long needed our attention. Not only to make it safer for our kids who cross it every single day back and forth to school, but also to do some long overdue TLC to this important historic corridor. Previous speakers and comments have alluded to the need to do the very best we can for High Street to keep it historic. I agree with that, and I think this project does that. There have been 2 public meetings, 3 public meetings with the Historical Commission, and numerous meetings with staff and counselors. The abutters, many of whom attended the public meeting earlier this summer, have also been contacted individually by staff. I want to personally recognize Heather Shand's efforts on behalf of this project and her constituents who live along this corridor and use it every single day. Adjustments have been made in response to input received. No project is perfect, and no project will address everyone's concerns. This project lets us achieve multiple objectives with minimal local taxpayer dollars, and that's why I'm asking your support. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe it's Rick Doucette, 69 Marlborough Street.
Richard Doucette, 69 Marlborough Street. Thank you for your time that you've given to this point. I'm also the president of the Newburyport Girls Basketball Association, where we represent over 130 female athletes from 1st grade to 8th grade. I'll say I don't have any eloquent words of wisdom for you. I will say that my father's uncle's picture hangs out on the wall in the hallway there. He died as a young man fighting for our rights, one of which was to vote. So I figure if he can sacrifice that, I can get up here and there's a million things I'd probably rather be doing along with the rest of you. So what I will say is that in order to keep this under a minute, I guess just a simple question. If the folks who want the retail pot establishments are so adamant that they're on the right side of history and that the entire community has voted for this already, why not have a vote to confirm that? And that's my simple suggestion. We have the vote in the spring. Let the town say what they want to say, and those who think they're right, one way or the other, it's going to be decided.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Merry Christmas.
Okay. Eileen Burnham. I believe it's Burnham. It could be Burnhow. I'm sure she'll correct me.
Eileen Burnell, 13R Bromfield Street. I apologize for my voice this evening. I'm speaking in support of the citizens of Newburyport being allowed to vote on the specific question of whether we want retail marijuana in our city. I did not vote on that question. I voted yes to legalize marijuana in Massachusetts. They are substantively different issues. If nothing else, I ask you to allow this issue to come to a ballot because of the potential consequences of moving too fast are not well understood. I have not heard any compelling arguments or evidence that this is the only moment that we can accomplish retail shops. Right now, however, it is the metaphorical Wild West in communities that already have legalized retail marijuana. They're learning on the fly the hard way. There will be no going back if it is evident that ready access to recreational marijuana is negatively and disproportionately harming our community and changing its character in irrevocable ways.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Josh Bamford. Bomford, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I think fairness and process is really important and more important than the end game. The arguments that I've had have been based on the language of the ballot question and then the 2017 statute, which we all agree was poorly written and very much limits local municipality control. We have over 1,600 signatures, more than 15% of the total number of voters this past November, and that should mean something, as this is the standard that the city charter uses as a marker of getting a special election ballot without even using the city council. Under any other circumstance, there'd be a special election. We are not a small yet vocal angry group. We are your neighbors. We have no financial interest in marijuana. We're not activists. We just care about the city. We did not vote to have marijuana establishments in the city. In fact, 55% of the people voted to have local control and even a vote to ban its sale. And this point is evidenced by so many other yes towns and cities that have opted out of recreational marijuana establishments. This isn't even about marijuana anymore. This is about fairness, democracy, and good government. To those of you who had no intention of voting yes tonight when you walked into these chambers, I hope you understand the precedent that you'll be setting and reconsider.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Sarah Hall.
Sarah Hall, Arthur Welch Drive. I'm here tonight to support the Respect the Vote movement along with my husband. We both live and work in Newburyport and have 2 children in the public schools. In November 2016, we voted yes to legalization, regulation, and retail sale of cannabis. The opt-out group claims to represent our interests as parents who voted yes, perhaps didn't realize that local retail would follow. I'm here to tell you that we did realize this. We understood what we were voting for, and we are in favor of local retail with appropriate regulation and zoning. Our city council was on the right path through the summer with their hard work on a zoning compromise. Thank you for that. The suggestion that I didn't understand what I was voting for is disrespectful to all of us who voted yes in 2016. It is my belief that the opt-out group is made up of people who voted no and are hoping for a low voter turnout special election to change the results. I am aware that this has happened in other towns, but that doesn't make it right. This is not how democracy works. To have a revote at this point would erode our already fragile democracy. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you. 59 seconds, that was. You get the star. Sierra Gitlin, 20 Orange Street.
Hi, I'm Sierra Gitlin, mother of 2, Orange Street. I've emailed all of you, I think, and spoken with many of you, and I would like to just agree with what Sarah just said wholeheartedly and ask, Councillor Eigerman stated that the moratorium on retail cannabis would end either when zoning was approved or when a no vote, vote to ban happened, whichever came first. The zoning was passed. I'm not sure why we're here. So I think we are legislating or attempting to legislate out of fear and misinformation, and we should respect the hard work in good faith that you councilors did in enacting zoning throughout this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Reese Sullivan. Jerry talked.
Oh, I signed more, but I think.
Oh, wait, you haven't been up.
Happy to speak again.
Let's have a rerun.
Read like a revote?
And Ann Dykes has already spoken, so I don't have to ask Ann to come up again. Tom Salemi.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Tom Salemi. I live at Ting Street. I personally don't oppose opening retail marijuana businesses in town. I'm the father of 2 young boys, and I'll accept the responsibility of teaching them how to approach such products responsibly, just as I currently do with alcohol. But I recognize the language of the question and the subsequent rulings from the state raise a fair question about whether an additional vote is necessary. So if you decide a vote is necessary, I just ask, I feel strongly that we put it on the November ballot. I think first it ensures that we hear from as many voters as possible. Second, the timing is consistent with 2016, so we're comparing apples to apples. Finally, the results of the 2016 elections indicate that it's not an emergency in the eyes of many voters, so I think we can wait, take our time. I think a lot of great points have been raised today, and I think there's a lot to consider, so I really would not want to rush into this decision. I'd like the community to take its time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Sonia Jasinski, I believe.
You actually got it right. Thank you.
It's the Kosmorowski in me.
No, I see that. Sonia Jasinski, live on Orange Street, own on Purchase Street and Market Street. I just want to say, I feel like I'm watching a documentary about prohibition and when people were afraid about the things they didn't know. And I would say, rather than looking at towns that have voted for or against, let's look at their neighboring towns. Now, I grew up in Spencer, Massachusetts, which is next to Leicester, Massachusetts. And one of my best friends is on our town selectman board and has stated that their town selectmen regret unequivocally not allowing marijuana sales, recreational sales that are regulated into their town because they're procuring the cost for the police for the roads, for all of the fallout from a neighboring town without benefiting from any of the sales. So just, there's more to think about than what we've been thinking about. And I am for recreational sales with the way that they're laid out already by the state and the CCC. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine Riccardi.
Hi, Christine Riccardi, Summit Place. Thanks for all your work. I don't have much more to add. I agree wholeheartedly with every single person who stood up here for opt-out. Please give us this chance to make the correct decision for our town. Listen to the 1,500 votes. Thank you.
Thank you for brevity.
I think I won in seconds.
You did, 21. Jenny Donahue.
Okay. Jenny Donahue, Newburyport Commission on Disabilities. I am giddy to be here with other information and news. So, the Disability Commission is really excited. We were introduced to a resident-driven initiative over the summer, parents seeking accessible swings at the playgrounds throughout the city. Of course, we're very excited to be backing that and supporting it and advocating. So you will see on your agendas, there is a transfer request number 33. That is a request for a transfer from the Commission on Disabilities funds. You will see that we do have a cap, so we require your approval for that additional, for the higher amount. So what we are asking is the 3,300, and you will see another item, Order 078, which is to accept a donation in that same amount, which is a match. So the people that started this initiative raised money on their own, and the Disability Commission was more than happy to match it and get going. I mean, essentially this is a first step. The swings, we're very excited. If you have any questions when that comes up, I'm going to be here for you. But it's a first step. We have a grander goal, and I would need way more than a minute to try to express that. But
That's okay, we get it.
yeah, so, but the other thing is that the Safe Routes to School, which I'm very much in favor of and backing, because anything to do with fixing the sidewalks, we want that. But I have to say, and I have attended some of one of the meetings where the material of brick was brought up because of some of the members of the Preservation Society being concerned about old brick being reused versus having to use new brick, which would take away the aesthetic. I made very clear why that is not really, you can't do it. It's counterproductive to safety, access, all of that.
Your time is up, so thank you very much.
Okay, all right. I'll be emailing you all on the rest.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dominic Garibaldi.
Thank you, members. You already know my feeling on this situation. I just want to, this is a very difficult and divisive matter that you guys are voting on tonight. I do want to dispel some mistruths and information that's been provided to the council members here. I've been a resident of Newburyport since 1998 and the surrounding area since 1988. And I live in a two-family home, and any information that you received is miscorrect and misleading. I believe democracy was voted in November 2016, and I vote no for a revote. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. John Elwell.
Thank you. John Elwell, 266 High Street. Thank you for having this session. I urge you to support a referendum on whether marijuana shops should be allowed in the city. When I voted in 2016, I was voting whether marijuana should be decriminalized or legalized, but was not given the choice to vote on marijuana stores in my city. In fact, the vote said a city or town could hold a local vote to determine whether to permit the selling of marijuana and marijuana products. I urge you to support that vote. If we truly believe in democracy and citizen input, then a referendum is essential to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Brian Belts.
Brian
Ryan Belts, 1467th. I just want to dispel this myth that marijuana was decriminalized in 2016. That's completely fake. It was legalized, taxed and regulated, to be taxed and regulated. By saying you don't want it in your backyard, you're okay with other children getting it, but you don't want it in your neighborhood. What is it? What do you think? We're better humans than other people? Don't vote yes because you don't want it in your backyard. Where did you think it was going to go? Can someone answer that question?
Please address the council, not the membership. No, we're not.
Chairman.
I'm sorry, we're not going to get into a floor debate here. The members will debate things in a little bit. Just like cheering and booing. If you want to do that, go to a Celtics game. They could use your help. Okay? Asa Layton.
Good evening. My name is Asa Layton. I'm on 15 Essex Street. I'm a veteran. I'm in the Air Force. Been in for about 10 years now, and I don't have any stake in the game per se. So I support retail sales. I don't have any real problem with it. If you people insist that you need to go down this path of trying to determine whether or not we need to re-query the people to see if they will support, then by all means go for it. But I would like you to consider doing it in November, when there's a regular election and there's more people that can, listen and understand what really is at stake. So, thank you.
Thank you. Kate Senzamiki. And I'm sure I butchered your name. I apologize.
You're close. Kate Senzamichi, Purchase Street. I'll keep it short. Just want to thank the council for all the work you've done on this issue with the zoning. I'm in favor of retail sales in Newburyport. I do not think we should have a revote. If it does go to the ballot, I think it should be in November. And I just want to reiterate the point that someone else made about decriminalization versus legalization. It was already decriminalized in November 2016 when we voted. So the vote to legalize, that kind of comes that taxed and regulated market. And I think that we should go based off those results. Thanks.
Thank you. 46 Kent Street, and the first name looks like David and Campachiara. You're going to have to correct me. David? He left. Well, then maybe he's not offended. Judy Timon. There you are.
Good evening, Judy Timon, 39 Lime Street, and I want to speak in support of the Safe Routes to School project. I support everything that Juliet Walker has said, and I would remind everyone we've got a great planning staff. They know how to incorporate comments from all constituents, and I think at some point, the council does need to trust that your staff knows what they're doing. And also, it's called Safe Routes to School for a reason. It's going to provide many, many children with a safer way of getting to school. Thank you.
Thank you. Rick Tainter.
Hi, Rick Tainter, 10 Dexter Street. Two things. First, on the retail marijuana ballot question, I don't have a strong feeling one way or another about whether we should have retail marijuana in the city or whether there should be a ballot question, but I strongly urge you, if you're going to add this to a ballot question, to have it in November. I don't think that 30 or 40% of voters voting, if we could get that much in a special election, would be acceptable. I think we really need to get in for something higher, so I really think it needs to be on a November ballot. The second item is with respect to the High Street project. I would urge you to pass this along and approve the project as it is designed, not to add anything that would detract from the accessibility issues in terms of materials and so forth. This has had a lot of input from residents, and a lot of changes have been made over the 2 years that it's been designed. So I would urge you to support it and move it forward so we can get it started under construction next year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Stephanie Nikotich.
Stephanie Nikotich, 93 High Street. I'm so sorry for what you have been put through at the end of this year, and I thank you for your service. I want to briefly add to my written testimony about the High Street roadway project. I have a concern I have also heard from others, and that this project is a Trojan horse, the slow boiling of the frog, and the consequence of too much development. 2 historical commission members who felt raised pedestrian islands in particular are out of character with High Street asked during one of the commission's meetings if more can be expected. If this is the start of a slippery slope, please do what you can to improve the process. There has been 1 public hearing in 2 years on the project before you tonight. Plans to alter Newburyport's historic streetscapes must be in your and all residents' full view far in advance of city decisions. Thank you very much and happy holidays.
Thank you. Thanks, Stephanie. That's it. I want to thank everyone for their restraint and for observing the time limits. Again, to members of the public who have additional testimony they'd like to submit, they can do so by sending information or dropping it off with the clerk. He'll distribute it to the members.
After we vote. After we vote.
It's time for the mayor's comments. Mayor Holliday, you have 1 minute. Oh, I'm sorry. No, you have 7 minutes.
I really will try to be fast, but remember, I wasn't here last meeting, so I didn't do an update. But anyway, good evening, councilors. Thank you for the opportunity to give you as brief an update as I possibly can. First and foremost, I have to thank all of you for the numbers of hours, meetings, conversations, discussions, the work that you have done on this issue. It has been incredibly challenging, and I really, really appreciate all of your efforts. I think that at this point, the fact that we have well over 1,500 residents who have come forward and many of those, I think it was over 1,000 signatures have been certified by the clerk's office. I would ask that you support a ballot initiative in November. Now, please remember the way the law is written, that we together have to agree, the council and mayor. There's no override. I don't think a special election makes any sense. We are not ready to do the senior tax incentive special election. If that was the case, maybe it would have been different, but I think we should wait till November when we have a much fuller turnout and that we can get more input on this very divisive issue. And I'm sure you would like to be done with this issue in terms of where we're going with it, so you can move on and work on a lot of other issues besides pot. Safe routes to school. I know you're voting on this tonight. Thank you, I appreciate that. This has been a project that's been in the works for several years. I believe there's been several modifications to the project. Everyone involved in this project honors and respects the historic nature of High Street, but we have had children who have been hit. The speed on the street is really a problem, and this is a project that is going to really help to make it safer, and we'll be able to do the roads and the sidewalks, and I don't see this as the beginning of some slippery slope for some awful thing that's going to happen. It is specific for our kids to get to school safely. Parks, very quickly, we had a really productive meeting with the members of the Board of Directors of the Pioneer Field and are moving forward on a new field maintenance program, so I'm very pleased that the direction, because things, as you recall, were not so cordial about a year ago with our relationship with the Pioneer Field. So I'm very pleased the direction things are going in. We're continuing our work to rent out space from NED at 51R Water Street to move the Parks Department there, as well as the storage facility at the end of Colby Farm, so that they can house their equipment and materials there. Complete Streets. We had our first internal meeting with TEC. They're the same engineering firm that is doing our Safe Routes to School. It makes sense. They've done a real nice assessment of our city. On Thursday night, We have an opportunity to bring the community together for a brief overview of complete streets. Then we will have ward maps from all 6 wards laid out upstairs in the auditorium, and we ask the public to go through and look at these different streets within our city and decide which streets they would like evaluated through this process. We're supposed to pick between 10 and 15 areas. I see the Pioneer League Merrimack Street as a high need area, the 3 corners up on High Street where we had the car hit a sidewalk, porch. There are certainly many areas of our city that could benefit from a complete streets redesign. So please participate in this process. I think it's important. The landfill. I haven't spoken about the landfill in a long time because it's been in the hands of DEP and the Office of the Attorney General. We did meet with an organization called Blue Wave, who has signed a lease agreement with New Ventures to put solar on top of the landfill. But in order for that process to move forward, they must reach closure. So this might be a way that we can finally get New Ventures to close the landfill according to the requirements of DEP and be able to put some solar on the top of it. The Gravel Road lift station is, we did a tour of that last week. I am just so pleased with the way this project has turned out. It came in on budget, it's on time despite some of the delays with some of the major equipment coming in. It's so important so that we can get this lift station running and get our old lift station shut down because it is incredibly dangerous. So very, very pleased with this project, and thank you for your support on that. Phillips Drive, there's been a little bit of, I think, confusion about where the city stands in terms of Phillips Drive and the neighborhood. We are committed to continuing work in this neighborhood. We've done with a graduate student, or college students, some initial hydrology assessment. We have installed subdrains on the base of the hill, or the foot of the hill on Phillips Drive to capture groundwater, which seems to be working well at this juncture. There also was another subdrain installed on a residence property that seems also to be helping a long-standing problem there. The Hancock Group is doing a survey. We're about 90% done of the entire neighborhood. Once that's done, then at that point we'll be able to meet internally, figure out what the survey says, have a full meeting with the residents, and then to work on a phased-in capital plan. And we did have a small leak on Sullivan that was bleeding into Drew, which was causing that pulling of water, but we had to bring out an outside contractor with more sophisticated equipment to be able to track. You'll see the repair there. On the 17th, next Monday at 8:30 in the morning, the long-awaited groundbreaking of the Metzies 76 rental apartment unit building will be coming forward, and we expect Lieutenant Governor Polito as well as Secretary Ash to be there. Would appreciate all of you being there. 25% of it is affordable, but because it's located in our 40R district, all of those units are considered affordable. Merrimack River Watershed Council, on Friday, I had the opportunity to be one of the keynote speakers, talked about all the wonderful things we've been doing in terms of addressing climate change in our community, as well as spent time talking about CSO activations again. We are moving forward on trying to refile that bill for notification, and we're working closer with the Watershed Council, and they are starting to do other community meetings along the region to get more and more people educated on what is coming down the river. Our legislative delegated trip to DC was postponed on last Wednesday, the 5th, because National Day of Mourning for President Bush. We are planning to go to spend some time at National Headquarters for Army Corps and meet with our senators and congressmen in Washington to advocate for dredging of the river and additional work that needs to happen out on Plum Island. I'm very proud of the work of our city that we received for the 7th year in a row from the Government Finance Officers Association, the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for FY18. And I also wanted to give a special thank you to the ad hoc committee working on Waterfront West, and to particularly the chair, Councilor Eiderman. Again, this has been a lot of work, a lot of time, but I think this approach is really a direction that makes sense in terms of presenting our design development requirements back to NED as they come back to us. I think it will be a much better process. So again, it's a complex, difficult project, and I thank you all for your time and efforts on that. A couple personnel notes. Jamie Tuccolo has been promoted to the Deputy Director of DPS, and I'm thrilled that he's an internal candidate who has risen to this position. He has a lot of experience in water and sewer, and will pick up the highway piece in no time at all. And I'm sorry to say that we will be saying goodbye to Kate Newell-Smith, who is a planner in the planning office. Sort of interesting, she's taking Matt's position in Salem, the planning position that he vacated to come here as Chief of Staff. So if you have no further questions, I'll leave you to your work. Wishing all of you happy holidays.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilor Genta.
Mayor, you said here in your notes that you'd be in support of a ballot question in November. Would you also be in support of a moratorium so no shops could open between now and then?
I think it would be very difficult to. I don't know if we're going to be able to get a moratorium in through the AG's office, but how can we move forward on a ballot question that's supposed to determine the future of retail shops if we've got retail shops open? So yes, if there's a way that we can get that approved by the AG's office, but I'm not sure that that's possible, but certainly we'll work with you on that one.
Would you deter any pot shops from opening between now and then?
Legally, if we can, yes, until the ballot question happens, but I'm a little concerned about that piece, so we'll have to work on that.
Okay, thank you.
But I don't think that should deter or change any of your votes tonight. Just my recommendation. Remember, a November election.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
You have a question?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor. One more question. Councilor Teed, I didn't see you. That's why.
A little bit taller than me. I'd just like to comment on the DPS staff, the work they did up on Drew Street and Sullivan Drive. I was up there for about 2 hours in the cold, and they were down on their hands and knees trying to find that damn leak. And I'd just like to, give them praise. It's been a long time. They've spent many hours there, and I just, that day, the cold and everything it was just phenomenal to see the hard work they did. They didn't stop for nothing. It was fantastic. So.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Councilor. I know they've had 3 other water main breaks, and it's tough in this type of weather with to deal with this kinds of conditions. But thank you. I appreciate the feedback, and I'll be sure to pass that on to Tony and his staff. Thank you so much.
Mayor's comment. Let's go through the consent agenda, and then I believe we're going to do something with the agenda so that the good people who are waiting here can get home at a reasonable hour. Richard?
With us. The consent agenda this evening consists of the approval of the minutes for November 26th. There's one transfer, transfer 36, which is salary director for HR, $2,000, to HR advertising, $500, and HR supplies, $1,500. That's to go to budget and finance. There are 4 communications, all to go to license and permits. They're all Class 2 vehicle licenses. Communication 99 is Plum Auto Works. Communication 100 is RL Curry Corp. Communication 101 is LCA Motors. And Communication 102, State Automotive Repair. There are 2 reappointments. Stephen Moore, 10 North Atkinson Street, to the Concom until 12/1/2021. And Jennifer Blanchett, 4 Island Lane, Newbury, as zoning administrator until 12/31/2020. They are to be referred to Planning and Development Committee, also under our regs. And that's the consent agenda this evening.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, it is done. Can we get some action on the mayor's update, please? Is there a second? Second by Councilor Tantar. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is done. Can we get through appointments and then make the move? If you.
So we have one second reading of an appointment. It's Ron Center, 10 Madison Street, as a special police officer.
Motion to approve on first reading, second reading.
Second reading.
Second reading.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. We'll take a roll call on this matter.
Councilor Junta.
Yes.
Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor O'Brien.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tantar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel. Yes. Councilor Zede.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Earl.
Yes.
Councilor Agaman.
Yes.
Council President Connell.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Councilor
Motion to
Zede.
waive rules to planning and development next. Now.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, and the particular objective here is to discuss the marijuana issues that have been generating so much testimony, and then we'll return to the regular agenda. Discussion. Councilor Thompson.
Point of order, the motion was to consider the planning and development. There are a number of people here for Safe Routes to Schools. Can we discuss that as well before going on?
Well, that's in planning development,
Yeah.
so it'd be up to the chair, the order as to where to take it out. But my intent was to do marijuana first. The greatest.
Well, I'm fine doing it first, but also thereafter
I
doing...
just want to move
Sure.
planning and development committee up to now. All
Yeah.
the matters that are.
Right, so I'm-
Further discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor of moving Planning and Development's committee report to the head of the agenda as it sits right now, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So we'll hear the Planning and Development report now. Councilor Agaman.
Motion to remove Order 36, Version 2, in the packet.
Moved and seconded. I'm sorry, you're taking this out of committee?
Yeah, just to take it out of committee now.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I wanted discussion.
Oh, I apologize. Councilor Vogel.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to rise in opposition to bringing these out tonight, any of these particular orders. I know that there's a lot of people here, there's a lot of people anticipating that we're going to move on this. It's interesting because over the last several weeks, we've gotten a considerable amount of communication. A lot of it is said that we have rushed into this marijuana effort. I think we've been talking about marijuana since 2016, and we certainly have not rushed into it. We've had met over and over and over and over again. In fact, at one point in time, I asked the chair of the Planning and Development Committee for another meeting, and we didn't have another one because the decision had already been made because of so many meetings that we've had. We've learned about this petition over the last, essentially, couple months, and we've only seen the petition over the last few weeks. I don't think we've had an opportunity to go through the language. I don't think we've had an opportunity to fully vet it. I was up in a meeting this evening, the second meeting of the Committee of the Whole. I had to leave because I had another meeting, license and permits meeting that had already been scheduled, and that meeting was put on top of it. I would urge this council to not take this out of committee tonight, but to let it rest and to let us do our homework and let us come to a full understanding as to what's before us. I haven't even seen the language. The language that was discussed at that meeting I haven't even seen.
Further discussion. Councilor Zede.
Yeah, it's time for this to come out of committee. I don't know what's going to happen on the floor. Nobody does. But we desperately need to get it together here and get some direction before we go back and do the same thing we've been doing for months. And I think that needs to be done on this floor here tonight. We owe all these people something so they can at least hear us speak. We've heard them speak. They need to hear us speak. The best mechanism for that is to bring this out of committee and have it out on the floor and get some direction as to where we're going. And then we can get more clarity on what the next steps might be.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion. Councilor Agaman.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that what I was moving to take out is language that you've had since May. So the version 2 was written by Mark Rich, the city solicitor. So we've had this. That's the language for 7 months. So that's all I was going to say.
Thank you. Councilor Tantar.
Yeah, I asked the committee to hold this in committee. For one thing, I wanted KP Law to take a look at it again. The change the committee made that will bring it before us, I believe, is just going to be a general ordinance. Other communities are facing lawsuits over this, and I wanted clarity on that. I also understand that there is a petition circulating that is asking us not to put it on the ballot, that just has started. I'd like to give those people an opportunity to do that. So all I was doing was asking for a delay for consideration until January. I also support, if we are going to put it on the ballot, doing it in November for reasons I'll talk about later. So I think we have time to get this right, because quite frankly, it's been pretty messed up every step of the way. So I'm just asked to delay. So I'm going to vote in favor of not taking it up.
Councillor Khan.
Yeah, thank you, Council President, fellow councilors. I did go to the Planning and Development Committee meeting that was supposed to talk about this ballot question, and it was very rushed. And yes, in our packet, we have had this order since May 14th, 2018. We did have the ballot referendum in our agenda. And you're right, it was in our agenda since that date, and it's been on the online agenda for every meeting. So we've had this ballot there. I do not disagree with that. Did we talk about the ballot question? No. The first time we talked about the ballot question was right before this meeting. So in fairness to our process, at this point, it's not about the issue, it's the process, you guys. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. We're examples. We are showing how government works. In fairness of the process, I just encourage everyone, let's not take this out. Let's take it back to committee. And there's so many questions. Why not address those questions and do this right? So I will not support this coming out of committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Genta and then Councillor Argument, I thought your hand was up.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify something. Go ahead.
Councillor Genta, please, first.
7 months, folks. This has been sitting in committee for 7 months. It's one line. It basically says, consistent with GLC 94G Section 3-2, marijuana retailers as defined in GLC 94G Section 1N shall be prohibited within the city of Newburyport. We have to wait to January. It's one line, for God's sakes. And then this is what we wrote. We already sent it to our city solicitor, and he sent it back. So it's already been approved by the city solicitor, and upstairs, we just approved what the city solicitor approved. There's no reason to slow down or stop. This is ridiculous. To be quite honest with you, not only do I have an approval from our city solicitor, this has been sitting for discussion for 7 months. We're here. It's time. 1,600 people are in that camera right now watching us.
Thank you. Councillor Argument?
Yeah, no, I apologize if it was confusing. We were rushed. We spent half an hour on it after having spent, I think it was half an hour a week ago. So that's true. But again, the motion that was made and came out of committee 2-1 was for the language approved by the city solicitor. We discussed and rejected changing what the city solicitor wrote.
Oh, I thought you did the
We rejected that. So 2-1, we would go with this language that mentions both the zoning ordinance and a general. So again, to be crystal clear, verbatim, what I'm taking out is what Mark Rich sent us 7 months ago.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Devlin?
I'm not sure what we're arguing about right now because, oh, hold on. I mean, we can bring it out for discussion and then we can put it back in if we find after discussion that it's you know, it requires more committee time. We do that all the time. We have a lot of people here. We have a lot of people on TV who are expecting this. A lot of people for and against. A lot on. I don't understand what we could use this as another advancement of the subject if we can't come to a conclusion. But it certainly seems like something that's worthy of discussion right now, or ripe for discussion now.
That's reasonable.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councillor Khan.
Thank you. I just want to also point of order in terms of the version that's in the packet. So we have the version 2. I know Councillor Genta is showing the one line, so that version is actually not in the packet now, which is funny because it's been in every packet. I mean, in terms of the agenda item has, but yeah, so it is here on the desk. It's not on the packet. So that's an important thing. But more than anything, here's something I'm just going to raise, and I think it's really important for everyone to consider this, and I think the public needs to hear this and those on TV, is what's the process we want to go through to actually the end game with the ballot. And I did bring it up in committee, and I think that's an important part as we're thinking about considering this. So again, I think there's a lot still that needs to be discussed and forwarded to our solicitor to get some feedback, and I just ask that we have another committee on this, another committee meeting on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Zede.
No one can know what conclusion we will come to if we bring this out of committee and talk it on the floor. I have no idea. Could pass, could fail, could go back to committee, could be tabled, could be anything. But what I do know is if you don't vote to take this out of committee, what you're saying to all the people is, I don't want to talk about this on camera. I want to go upstairs and work on it some more. I have a lot of things I need to say about this. I want to say them tonight. I think, again, we really owe that to people. We've listened to them. We've had many public comment sessions. We need to do this, and I also think strongly, agree with my at-large colleague, that this is the way for us to move. This is the process to move it forward. It's been in committee forever. Some things have to be dealt with all 11 of us here in this room. This is one of those things. Let's bring it out. Let's talk about it. Nobody knows what the result is going to be. If we don't bring it out, just so those of you who are sitting here and watching, there will be no further discussion. Zip, we're moving on to the next thing. So take that for what it means.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Tantar.
Yeah, I'm going to say, actually, it's unbelievable. I've been convinced by Councilor Devlin. I don't know, I've never said that before. But I don't know, I might. I think for the purpose of having a discussion, and there are a lot of people who are interested in that discussion, let's do it, but I'm still going to be arguing that we ought not to do a final vote this time.
Councilor Earls.
I really want more clarification. The way it was read was one sentence. Everything in front of me is 2 sentences at least. So I'm not sure what's really coming out. The version 2 I have in front of me is very different than the not so late file that we received. So I assume we're really just looking at version 2, which has a zoning ordinance and a general ordinance.
Right.
So I'm willing to discuss this.
Correct. That's correct.
But it is more than one sentence. So what was read was incorrect.
Thank you. Councilor Vogel.
All right, so I'll rise and let it be on record that I was convinced by Councilor Zede.
Yeah. And folks, there's no collusion here. This is,
It's a conspiracy, yes.
Is there further discussion?
Move the question, Mr. President.
We'll do this on a roll call. All those in favor of removing this item, which is
Roll call, or
number...
are you doing
Roll call or voice?
Or
We're
voice?
going to do this with a roll call, because I don't think we have, I don't think a voice vote's going to be clear.
This is a motion to remove Order 36,
36,
version 2.
correct? Yes.
Councilor Junta.
Yes.
Councilor Khan.
No.
Councilor O'Brien.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tantar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
I'm going to vote yes.
Councilor
I'm
Zede.
sorry.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Earls.
Yes.
Councilor Eigenman. Council President.
Yes.
10-1. It is out on the floor.
Is there a motion relative to Order 36?
Oh, boy. Motion to approve.
Second.
Let's start with that.
Well, which one?
The one that we just brought out, version 2. Motion to approve version 2.
Okay,
And I
thank
heard
you.
a second from Councilor Junta.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Start with that.
Discussion. Councilor Eigenman.
Can I make a motion to amend?
You may.
Okay. Motion to amend, the first line currently reads, shall this city adopt the following zoning and general ordinance? But it doesn't give a date for the election. So I would amend the order to set it on the November municipal election of 2019. That's my proposal.
Is there a date certain on that? Do you have that, Councilor, or
I do not.
does the clerk?
He would in a minute.
Because that might give us a little more clarity.
It's the second Tuesday in November.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty safe
Which-
that it'll be the second Tuesday.
Which is
In November.
November 12th.
Councilor, Is that acceptable to you?
on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think it would be November 5th.
November 5th?
That's not the second.
Ooh, that's not the second.
I know. I know.
First
I know.
Tuesday.
I just
Okay.
convinced myself otherwise. So,
That's, yeah.
Why don't we revert to the original?
The problem, Mr. President, it hasn't been set yet.
All right, why don't we
It's set
revert
by
to the
this
original
body.
motion?
Just stick with my motion then.
Yes.
So I motion to amend.
I'm sorry I interrupted.
It's okay.
To set it for vote on the municipal election of November 2019.
Yeah.
We're only going to have one, I hope.
Yeah.
And that is your that is
That's
a
motion
proposed
to amend.
amendment.
It did not come from the committee.
Yes.
That's coming from me.
Understand.
It did not come from the committee.
Discussion of the amendment, please.
Was there a second?
Councilor Junta.
Yeah, no.
Is there a second on that?
Second.
Was there a second? I thought I heard one.
Second.
Now there's a second.
Mr. Shan seconded that motion to amend.
So I was going to make a motion for May, so we could have that discussion, and could, with your permission, could we have that discussion?
It's germane.
If we're talking about dates.
Jermaine.
Is that okay? You're okay with that?
Yes. You may proceed.
Okay, great, thank you. You know, the reason that I wanted to pick May, and I came out with that on last Monday, is because May 6th in particular, every city around us is having an election. So it would not be unusual for us to have one also. The second thing is, this is a very divisive issue, and a full year of pot talk is probably not good for Newburyport. I can only think of floats in the Yankee homecoming parade, pro pot and against pot. And quite frankly, I don't want to see any of it. I'd rather us have a May special election, just sort of rip the Band-Aid off. It is what it is, sort of winner take all, if you will. And, you know, folks have been saying, oh, we don't want to spend 12 grand on a special election, and we don't want to do that. And, you know, just to give everybody a little bit of history, Newburyport City Council approves petition for a special election January 31st, 2018. Already okayed spending 12 grand on a special election for our seniors, which was really nice of us to do because we thought that much of them that we would spend 12 grand to get them a tax deduction on there and possibly stay in their homes. And then I hark back at some of Newburyport's history. December 9th, 2014, we had a nice special election for the Fuller Fields. That was a good one. The Fuller Fields are beautiful. I think this election, I hope that we consider it a legitimate one, because we did spend the money and the field is beautiful. We did a debt exclusion in 1997. That was to fund our school system with John Moak. That one didn't pass. Got a lot of people voted in it. Was very popular, but it came up short. May 22nd of 2007, we had another one to assess an additional $1.58 million in real estate and personal property taxes for purposes of funding the operating budget of the schools. Imagine that. We had a second special election to fund our schools. Newburyport seems to have a pretty big history with special elections. And then lastly is June 5th of 2012, we had a special municipal election, which was, let's see, it was, shall the city of Newburyport be allowed to be exempt from the provisions of Prop 2.5, so called in the amounts required to pay for the bonds issued in order to pay for the cost of design, constructing, furnishing, and commissioning a new Bresnahan Model School, which will be located at 333 High Street, Newburyport. Imagine that. We had a special election to build an elementary school, which is beautiful, by the way. So we have a big history of special elections that, from what I can tell, have been pretty successful in this city. People have come out and they've voted for things. This is what we do in Newburyport. And so all this conversation about November, I don't get it when we have such a good history of this. And I know people will come out because it's an issue that split the city. So why would we wait all the way to November? Why wouldn't we just get it over? So that's really all I have to say. I was going to offer May to see how people would vote on that. You know, I want a special election, but there's no reason not to have it in May because the proof is in my hand. And if anybody has any questions about when we have special elections, this one's May 22nd. This one is May 20th. This one is June 5th. This is when we have special elections, when the weather's nice. And people do come out, and the numbers show it. There's one special election that was in the paper that showed 10% turnout, and it was held on December 9th, 2014. And I was involved with that. And the reason why it was held on December 9th of 2014 was because for us to meet construction season for Fuller Field, the mayor of Newburyport had to host a special election in December for us to approve the money so we could get the bulldozers running in April. And that's why it happened. But every other special election happens in May or June because that's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion, Councilor Argument.
So in committee, we didn't have a recommendation. We voted 1-to-1 on recommending a date, and then I abstained because I didn't have a preference. The reason I put it forward, though, is because, as the mayor said, she favors November, and you know, I don't feel that strongly that it has to be in the spring. I'll give you the reasons why I'd be okay if it were in the spring. Some of them are similar to what Councilor Junta said. There's plenty of precedent for us to do special elections in the spring. There's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly legally binding. And I think you know, the turnout that we get for our municipal elections is never going to be like a presidential election. It's just never going to be that high. So I don't know, again, we're crystal balling here. I don't know that an election in May would turn out materially fewer voters than in November. But to me, this whole issue is not about the merits, it's about the controversy. That's the question before us. Do we have a controversy, and how do we resolve this controversy democratically? And you know, I think the way to move this forward is to have it in November. You know, that's what the mayor says she's going to sign. You've heard many speakers tonight, and we've gotten lots of emails and letters saying that people would, if you're going to have the election, have it in November. And also, it would be linked to our campaigns for seats, so I can see the argument there. I don't think the cost, $12,000, again, in the grand scheme of our city budget, really is too much. But again, why fight over that issue? I think it's imperative that we allow people to decide this question. Only the people can decide it. You know, we've been lobbied, all of us, very heavily on the merits and demerits of marijuana, and it's just not relevant. You know, the question is, do you want to have an election? And let the voters decide. And it sounds like the way to triangulate to that is November. And, you know, we've got to move on in this community. And just one last thing is that, you know, people think this is the end. You know, what would happen if we had gotten a petition 5 years from now? Would we have refused to have an election? You know, laws are not forever. They can change. And that's our system. It's messy. So yes, I said on the radio, I've said publicly, you know, my position was I'm okay with the zoning. You know, we worked really hard on that. I'm okay with that compromise, but it's not up to me. You know, the voters have a right to decide this binary question: do you want to have stores or not? I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I think they deserve, as 50 other communities have given their voters the chance, they deserve this chance, and November is a logical time.
Further discussion? Councilor Tantar.
Just in terms of the November, one of the distinctions between the Ward 5 councilors' special elections and this one is they were not preceded by elections held during a presidential election year in which there was over 80% of the turnout. So if we're going to have this election, I think we have to optimize, and the legislature gave us a choice, special election or local election. And that's up to us. And I think to optimize turnout, and also in reference to some of the points that the Ward 2 Council made in terms of will also be running, or those of us who do run, and we should face the voters at the same time that the question's on the ballot. So I would urge you to vote yes on the amendment. It's different.
Councilor Z.
Yeah, I wasn't honestly expecting to have the timing discussion first, because I thought maybe we'd talk about whether we want to have a ballot first and then decide when, but I suppose they're interlinked in some ways, so I will confine my comments to the timing. So there's two things I want to bring up. Number one is, as we are all fiduciaries of the city, I will start let me preface by saying I don't have a strong opinion on either time. I think I share that opinion with the Ward 2 councillor. But here are some of the things I'm weighing and would welcome input from my colleagues. Number one is the discussion of a moratorium came up. So if you go with November, you've got an 11-month run-up during which we're in a very weird situation. We have zoning that's passed, previous moratorium that's expired, mayor's saying, I'll try my best maybe to stop something, maybe not. I think it's in all of our interests, regardless of where you stand on the underlying issue, to try and minimize the potential for litigation, because that's our job. So I don't mind facing the voters, I'm happy to do it, whatever. That part is not consequential to me. So that's one part of this discussion that probably needs to be talked about. A lot of the folks, what's kind of happened with the ballot question argument, and again, to echo my Ward 2 colleague, there's been a lot of arguments about the underlying question, which is, should there be retail shops or not? But one of them that's germane to this conversation is that you don't want to let the opportunity pass you by if you're a supporter of retail shops. So this another consideration is that, whether there's a moratorium or not, this is a weird thing, right? Where you've got it sort of legal, but maybe not, but maybe there's a ballot question coming a year later. That's my first comment is, what do you do in the interim? What happens in the interim? What are we going to do here if we end up getting mired into some kind of legal nonsense that we're going to end up spending money on? So that's one question. The second question is one that deeply troubles me, that we touched upon the tip of the iceberg upstairs during committee meeting, which is that there's this notion that 94G is written in a way that this ban to take effect needs two things. It needs a vote of the people, and then it needs a corresponding vote of the council. I'm a little bit unclear as to whether I agree with that reading of 94G, but I'm just going to assume that for the moment it is. What is troubling about this is there seems to be some implication by some councillors that should a ban prevail, they may choose to ignore that ballot question result because it would come back to here. So as it relates to the timing of the question, one of the things I was going to say is do not support this ballot question if you do not intend to take its results seriously at the end. And I have a lot more to say about why we should have a ballot. I do obviously feel that that's something we should do. But if this is just like, let's have a ballot, but if a ban prevails and one decides that it wasn't a representative election or it wasn't good enough, then don't vote for it, because it's a sham. Don't do that to people. If you're going to give them a vote, then you have to abide by the result, and that goes in both directions, if a ban prevails or if a ban fails. So again, trying to confine my comments specifically to the time of the election, those are the two things I have in my mind. What do you do during the gap year, essentially, what becomes a gap year between now and next November, if a retail shop tries to come in? Are we inviting litigation from the applicant, from the public, from the abutters, and everybody in between? And are councilors going to support the election and its results? If is there some magic number in your head that it has to be 51.2% turnout in order for it to be valid? So I've heard that. That was talked about upstairs. So, and people need to come out and confront that directly. So those are my two comments on the timing. And I'd like to hear what others have to say about those two.
Thank you, Councillor Devlin.
She actually, my sister to the right had her hand up earlier. She had her hand up earlier, my sister councilor, so please.
Can you pass Councillor Kyle?
Yeah.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to quote you, Councillor Z, or Councillor from Ward 1. Very weird situation. I totally agree. This is a very weird situation. I am talking about process. Timing is part of the process. Waltham, the city of Waltham. So what I did is research. City of Waltham did extend their moratorium. Yes, I actually listened to their city council meetings. They first, before they finished zoning, they came up with their zoning. They actually, on November 19th, 2018, it's a great meeting to listen to, they talked about a moratorium, and they did extend to July. They're a city, and because there was already precedence, they were able to do it. So we could follow the right process, which is all I'm asking here, you guys. This is a very strange way of getting to an outcome that has really just germinated towards the tail end of a very painful process, and I say painful process that we all went through. And I think we're still scarred by it. So I hope, again, let's do everything correctly. Timing. Yes, again, Councilor from Ward 1 was saying that, oh my gosh, if this ballot comes out and we're going to ban, then you guys all have to pass this zoning ordinance by the supermajority of passing a zoning ordinance. Let's think about why the laws are written the way they are. Timing. I go back to timing. There are things in this law that are written in terms of ambiguity, and I will agree with that. This is confusing. One of the cities, they first banned and passed the ban for the ordinance first before they took it to the voters. So a yes city, I mean, this is education that we've been trying to learn over the past few months. A yes city cannot just ban. So we heard the public comment talk about Lawrence. Lawrence was a no city. So the townspeople or the town selectmen were able to ban at that level because they were a no city. We're a yes city. So yeah, that puts us in a lot of problems because we have to do 2 actions before we could ban. Sorry, I'm logical, I'm an engineer. I have to look at this data and information before I tie my name to something that could be up for litigation or anything. Plus, again, I tell everyone, towns and cities are looking now at us. So we set a precedence. We're going to be an example for others. 266 cities out of the 357 towns and cities to 351, 266 were yes. Did they all go back to their voters? No, they didn't. No one answered that question, or no one even posed it. They didn't. So there's nothing about this being mandated to do. So that's why I want to make sure if we are going this route as a city, that we just do it right. So in terms of timing, yes, it should be at a time that there's a high voter turnout. It was nice to hear about the special elections we had before, and I think we're going to need that data to pull out in the future. So I thank my fellow councilor from Ward 5, because I think that was excellent. The one other thing I didn't hear is this is a revote. That's different than those other special elections. So I do want to point out this is a revote election. So we do really need to be mindful of how many people are going to come out.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor
Devlin.
And then Councilor Agaman, excuse me.
Specifically the timing, I'm kind of throwing some of my, it is an odd way that we're discussing this, but so I was trying to figure out how I would categorize how I vote, and it's either trying to find a way to make the most amount of people sort of happy, or conversely, trying to find a way to make the most amount of people sort of unhappy in the end, because that's what a compromise is about. And I would say on the timing issue, I mean, look, I have this hanging on my wall. It's the lawyer's 10 Commandments, and I used to say it was from a 17th century French lawyer, but it just said many years ago by French lawyer E.J. Couture. And the 6th one is tolerate the other's truth by the same measure in which you want yours tolerated, which means, and this debate is a good instance of that, I have heard very good reasons on both sides of the debate, and I'm not equivocating, that because this is a close issue, we've had some good from the audience, from the residents, from councilors, and this is one of the valid points that, and I liked what Ms. Gitlin said, which was, I think it was her that said, respect the voter, or somebody in that group that came up at about the same time, rather than I had pro-pot or pro-marijuana, but respect the vote. That's a legitimate concern, is there has been a prior vote, and so I'm not willing to fall on my sword, or to use Councilor Eigenman's words, over the timing of this, and it would seem that November is a fair time to do that. I would suggest that we all kind of empirically have seen, even from the commentary here tonight, but also in our emails, that the rhetoric and the tenor or the tone has lessened. And just in particular, I think you hear people saying, well, if you are going to do this, please do it in November. So that seems to be a big issue for the respect the vote people, and I think that's a way of sort of reaching compromise here. So that's why this is a sympathetic place for me, at least.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Eigenman and then Councillor Tantar.
Yeah, no, I didn't explain my point about what happens if someone comes in 5 years from now. I didn't do that right, so let me try it again, because it speaks to the moratorium. My point is that, let's just use an analogy of a zoning ordinance, okay? There can be uses that come in, and then years down the road, you say, you know what, City of Newburyport doesn't want to have those. Now, the ones that are in and permitted, they're grandfathered, they're protected under state law. But that doesn't mean you say, haha, we never have to deal with this issue again. You go ahead and you change the zoning going forward. So again, I know everyone's right in the moment and thinking like, right now, we got to decide it now. But the fact is, there's nothing in the 2016 ballot measure, there's nothing in 94G, there's nothing in the Cannabis Control Commission regs which say you have to have a vote by a certain time. It doesn't say that. And I don't think it could say that, actually, because of local control. So I'm not as uptight about the moratorium. That's how it goes. We won't have one in place. I think the implication is that we have to have a moratorium in place to vote on this. I don't think it's true. And so I leave that behind. As far as the legality of what we're doing, again, we've got the best advice we can on this language. So the language that's on the floor is exactly the language that was approved by Mark Rich, who works at KP Law, and it's the same language essentially that he approved for Amesbury, which had an election. So I don't, we did discuss and explore in committee, as we should have, alternative ways of doing it. That's not the proposal now. The proposal now is go with what the city solicitor said. And again, I just want to emphasize, you do not have to have a moratorium in effect to set the election.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Tantar.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it has to do with the question of whether we have the election in May or November, but I want to state for myself, I will vote on the ordinance any way that the voters of Newburyport vote. Period. End that discussion.
After.
Yeah. I may not be happy, but I will do it.
Councillor Z.
Yeah, just to respond, so the reason it's germane is just the amount of time that elapses between now and when the question can be resolved. That's why it's germane, that's all. If we're not gonna have a moratorium, and if whether we agree there's risk or not, with all due respect to the Ward 2 councillor, that's a fair legal answer, I think, but it doesn't explain what's gonna happen in the community if a shop tries to come in the interim. I've had enough emails for the last week, so I don't know how many emails you get on that one, but my point is that if we're trying to have an election, the point is to get to the answer, and I worry about that time elapsing, but like others, if November is the way to get on to discussing whether we're going to have a ballot or not, I guess, because we're going in that order, then so be it, and I'll reserve my comments for maybe when we get to that point.
Further discussion?
Roll call.
Hearing none, we're going to take a roll call on this matter, and this is the amendment.
This is the amendment to set the date at the November municipal election.
That's all it is, the point of order.
The amendment only.
Simply the date.
It's true, it's a motion to amend.
Councillor, as the clerk stated.
Councilor Junta.
No.
Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor O'Brien.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tantar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Z.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Earls.
Yes.
Councilor Eigenman.
Yes.
Council President Connell.
Yes.
10-1. The motion to approve has been amended.
And now the discussion reverts to the original motion on whether or not we shall have a ballot question using the language that was offered us by committee. Discussion on that matter. Councilor Devlin.
I just want to make sure I have the correct one that we were discussing. Is it this one that was on the desk, or is it the version 2?
Clerk to read the entire ordinance because it is the order.
This is Order 36.
And we'll all benefit from that. Go ahead.
Introduced originally 5/14/18, version 2.
36-2.
States May 14th. Newburyport ballot question for non-medical marijuana retail ban. Shall the city adopt the following zoning and general ordinances? Question mark. Summary. This question seeks voter approval of a zoning ordinance and a general ordinance prohibiting non-medical marijuana retail to include entities licensed to purchase and deliver marijuana and marijuana products from marijuana establishments and to deliver, sell, or otherwise transfer marijuana and marijuana products to marijuana establishments and to consumers from locating and operating within the city. This ballot question and the related ordinances will not affect the location or operation of medical marijuana dispensaries or other non-medical marijuana establishments within the city. A, zoning ordinance. Section V1, prohibition of non-medical marijuana retailers consistent with GLC 94G, Section 3A2, marijuana retailers as defined in General Laws 94G, Section 1, shall be prohibited within the city of Newburyport, period. This prohibition shall not apply to the sale, distribution, manufacture, or cultivation of marijuana for medical purposes, period. B, general ordinance. Chapter 9, Article 10, prohibition of non-medical marijuana retailers, consistent with GLC 94G, Section 3A2, marijuana retailers as defined in GLC 94G, Section 1, shall be prohibited within the city of Newburyport, period. This prohibition shall not apply to the sale, distribution, manufacture, or cultivation of marijuana for medical purposes, period. Then there's a yes, and then there's a no.
Okay, we're all working on the same page. Discussion on this proposal.
Roll call.
Hearing none.
It's just a matter of who's going first.
So we're discussing the ballot question. Thank you, Council President. So we're discussing the ballot question. Yeah. Can I just get clarification that when we're saying the medical, the sale, distribution, or just cultivation for medical purposes, and I know we approved cultivation, and I thought we talked a little bit about that at the Planning and Development Committee. So I'm a little concerned because we did approve zoning for cultivation back in, April maybe. And did we specify recreational cultivation or medical cultivation? So I'm a little concerned by this ballot question. So I'm surprised no one else raised their hand before me, so I was waiting. But is there an amendment coming to this? Thank you.
Councilor Eigenmann.
Yeah, no, just to clarify, and again, I apologize that there are various languages, versions out there, but the language here from the city solicitor is only about marijuana retail. That's all it's about. But it specifies non-medical marijuana retail. So again, it only talks about marijuana retail as defined under GL Chapter 94G Section 1. Marijuana retailer is a defined term under state law, and those are exclusive types. So you cannot be a cultivator and be a retailer. You're one of these types. So we're not banning cultivation. This language would not do that. Whether that's a good idea or not, we can debate that, but this language does not ban cultivation.
It's silent on the matter. Councilor Shand.
So I don't want to put you in a bad position, Councilor from Ward 2, but for Amesbury's for Amesbury's ballot question, do you know why KP Law would have suggested they use the zoning ordinance language where it's, sorry, I'm going to read the Amesbury ballot, but their zoning ordinance was section Non-medical marijuana establishments. Non-medical marijuana establishments is defined by GL 94G, including marijuana retailers shall be prohibited within the city of Amesbury, provided, however, that this prohibition shall not apply to marijuana cultivators, independent testing laboratories, and marijuana product manufacturers. Do you know why they would be that specific?
Councilor Agaman again.
Yes, and I should say I did have a conversation today with Scott Winters, who serves on the, I can't remember the name of their committee, but it's a committee, and he led the campaign against the ballot measure, so I did speak with him at length. It's because they use the term marijuana establishment.
Okay.
Marijuana establishment is all types of marijuana business.
Okay.
So if you say marijuana establishment, you have to carve out the things you want to save. Otherwise, all marijuana businesses are banned. They did it differently. When Mark Rich wrote it for us, we were specific that we only care about marijuana retail.
Thank you.
Councilor Zede?
Did you want to follow on that, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
You yield to Councilor Tantar.
So why is it, I don't know, in committee, did you discuss this with the city solicitor, this language? Because I would have asked, why is it even necessary in that last sentence to say the prohibition shall not apply to the sale or distribution? Why not just the sale of marijuana? Because none of this affects distribution, manufacture, or cultivation or anything. So why does that have to be there?
Councilor Zede, you want to yield again?
Go ahead.
No, I'm going to go on a different route, so please, let's finish this. Go on another, take a left turn or right turn, yeah.
As other councilors know, I have at times disagreed with the city solicitor. But in this case, I was not a sponsor of this ordinance, and when it came in May, it was referred to the city solicitor, and this is what came back. I would agree with you that there are clarifications in here that I don't think are necessary. For example, under General Laws, Chapter 94G, Section 1, as I said, a marijuana retailer is a defined type. You don't have to distinguish between medical, because that's a whole different category. So he didn't have to do that. But again, this was the language that came back 7 months ago. I'm trying to stick with what the city attorney says is the right language and not muddy things up.
Councilor Zede.
Okay. So I think, I don't know what's happening. Are we saying we're having a ballot, but only if the language is right? I guess we were saying maybe if only the timing's right, so now we've resolved that. I'm not going to take that for granted, and I'm not going to assume everybody knows what's in my head. So this is it. Here we go. I think a ballot question makes sense, and it's, for a lot of reasons, but I have a whole ton of bullet points here. But let me get to the one first that matters the most to me. We have a city charter, okay? The city charter was opened about 8 years ago, and updated. And it has a citizen initiative petition process in it. It's codified. I would not support removing those initiative petitions. I think it's another check and balance that exists on the city council in particular, because it's typically used against things that, that would be done by the city council. Early on in this process, our city solicitor, whom I do disagree with on this one, did not seem to have spent a lot of deep thought on reading 94G and comparing that to our city charter. But the conclusion he came to is that 94G takes our charter and puts it in the shredder and says that the citizen initiative process does not apply. He also came to some other odd conclusions, which are that a ballot question would have to pass the council and would have to be approved by the mayor with no override for a veto, if one should exist, which essentially breaks everything you learned in 6th grade about civics, which is that every power has a check and balance on it. So I don't know whether city solicitor is right. I personally disagree with his reading, but assuming that he's correct, and assuming that the state legislature, in their infinite wisdom, decided that that was the right thing to do last year, was to take our charter and chop it off at the knees, they were wrong. And the recourse that we have as councilors to correct that ill is to put it on the ballot ourselves, okay? These folks that collected signatures, whether you agree with them or not, essentially exceeded what the charter would have called. And as everybody knows, 94G, again, assuming you agree with the city, not only shredded our charter, but also didn't provide any other guidance as to when to have a ballot question. It sort of just said, well, if the city council wants it and the mayor wants it, so be it. So I'm deeply moved by that, and I think that that was I think amongst many mistakes the state legislature made in 94G, particularly last year when they updated it, was a failure. And we have an opportunity here as a council to correct that failure. So that's the first thing I want to say. And that perhaps is what I consider to be the most compelling argument to putting it on. You'll notice that I haven't said anything about marijuana because this isn't a debate about marijuana. There should be no relitigation of the 2016 question. The ills or positives for society, whether it's good, bad, indifferent. I have read the 2016 question myself, as we all have, 17,000 times. I do not come to the conclusion that the 2016 question resolved this, and in fact, I think it basically created this. It created this, what we stand in today, and again, for whatever reason, the legislature decided last year they weren't going to try and add any clarity, they would just add more muck to the water, and good luck city councils around the state. So here we are, getting paid the big bucks to do this stuff. So I don't want to take for granted that whether we should have a ballot or not. I think that's still very much a question, and I am appealing to your sense of fairness on that, that it is, that the signature process has to mean something. With all due respect to the Ward 4 councilor, a second competing petition would only reinforce my feeling that it's time for a ballot. I jokingly said after the last meeting, I'm using applause now as my meter or metric for whether to have a ballot question on all sides, and there was plenty. So that's clearly a divisive issue. A couple of other comments for you. This process has not been great so far. I've been talking about process since I started, and it's been a challenge. I was happy to hear the mayor weigh in because we haven't heard too much from the administration on this issue to this point. With all due respect, I think it hasn't brought out the best in the city council either. Accusing folks of keying your car without any corroborating evidence is detrimental to the city in the process. I'm sorry that it happened, but I don't think it makes it better or ameliorates the situation to bring those things up. Finally, several councils have brought up that opinions are only valid if they come in at certain times. So I guess there's a statute of limitations on how you feel. So you have to feel it within a certain period of time or it's not valid. I disagree with that as well. I think this ballot question has coalesced around when the city council passed the zoning. And I agree with the public speaker that 1,500 people just told us that we were wrong, that we screwed this up. And that's fine. I can live with that. So another public speaker said, imagine if you had to report to the board that you passed up on this great opportunity. Well, actually 1,500 CEOs just knocked on the door and said, you screwed up. So fix it or you're fired. So I'm fine with that too. And as far as leaving money on the table and all that sort of stuff, that's the question that faces the voters, not that faces the council at this point if this goes to ballot. If it does go to ballot, a couple of thoughts for you as somebody who's been looking at it for 11 months. It's not an easy issue. If you think zoning this in Newburyport is easy, maybe you don't live in one of the neighborhoods that's near some of the areas where it might go. So it doesn't seem like a big deal. It's not a partisan issue. I haven't remarked that at all. It's about buffers, it's about neighborhoods, it's about our downtown, it's about emotions, it's about facts, it's about money. And you just have to consider all of those things. And what I would say is that as folks go, if they do go to the ballot box, these are the questions we wrestled with, and they'll now be your thing to wrestle with. There will be impacts on Newburyport, and impacts can be positive or negative. So what I would say is we cannot, there's a couple things I want to say, and then I'll wrap up. What has been frustrating to me most about the debate, I think, is this notion on both sides that we're destroying democracy. So we got up in the morning, we put on our suits and ties or attire and said, okay, we're going to destroy democracy. This is our plan for today. What I think destroys democracy is when you start saying that you want to alter the process to control the outcome. So you want to do this in order to, the ends justify the means. So wherever you're going is more important than how you get there. And I've noticed a lot of other kind of things percolating. We cannot govern by SurveyMonkey. It doesn't matter what a survey, an unofficial survey, why we would look at a survey when we might turn down a ballot question is illogical to me. We can't copy everything from every other community. It's instructive to look at other communities. We should all be looking to learn what other communities are doing. But this is Newburyport. We have 3 retail zones here. We have to look within ourselves to figure out what we're doing. We can't govern by questioning everything. We're going to question elections. So now a spring ballot is not as valid as a November ballot. I just think that's a very slippery slope. We can't govern by telling people there's a time limit on their opinion, and you've got to get it in by a certain time. So if and when folks go to the ballot, they'll have a lot of questions to consider. The money, the impacts, the potential costs, the revenues. Everybody can do their own research on that, come to their own conclusion. I personally would expect that if it goes to a ballot question, the City Council will do what it should do, which is get out of the way and let the people have their election. You would not expect us to be talking about this every 2 weeks. We recently had another matter where we argued about whether we were campaigning or not, and I think the same standard would apply here. We get this on the ballot and we get out of the way. Finally, in closing, I think a ballot question makes sense for the reasons I've outlined here. You've got petition in front of you. You may not like everything about the petition, but what does it say if you don't put it on the ballot? What does that mean? So I think we should wrap our heads around that question first. Are we going to have a ballot or not, before we get down and waste our time about arguing about the actual specific language? If there aren't 6 for a ballot in general, let's get on with the night and move on. If the November timing was the issue, that's been settled. So now there's only one question left. Do you want to have a ballot? And then we can get on to the details. Thank you.
Further discussion? Further discussion? Councilor Gunn.
Thank you, Council President. Yeah, I'm glad we're finally talking about the ballot and should we go to ballot or not. I think we started off with the date and the timing and then moved into the language. So I'll tell you where, how I am reaching, where I feel like is the best direction for me personally. I'm a city councilor at large, so I do listen and have to look at our city holistically. So, and I also just want to talk about the journey, because I feel like people are coming into this and maybe later in the year and you didn't really recognize that there was a journey taken, and I know I've talked many times about it. But we've heard and seen how people have felt on this issue, and I think we've all come from a place where some of us want to introduce the ballot and a moratorium to give us time and to ban, and whatever our motives were, we were trying to do what we could to have the opportunity to talk about it here in these chambers. So I feel like we did a lot of that actually, and we have our Daily News reporter here who's come to every single one of those meetings and it's written about. I'm written about bringing the ballot in, and then people came up to me and they heard about that. I'm sorry, I can't discredit my past year, my first year on City Council. It happened, and it's been tough. And I gotta tell you, I've learned so much about government and the process during that time. So there I come, new counselor, dealing with marijuana, right? And so we talked about so many things related to this. We went right into the zoning. We had that ballot referendum, and yes, if you look at the agenda, you'll see May 13th, 2018. Yes, we never talked about it in committee, but it's always been there on our agenda. So I recommend everybody here, maybe some civic engagement is really important, because we've been doing so much work, doing things, allowing for the public to come and speak. And I'm sorry, I just can't look back on that time saying, oh, well, let's just bring it back to the people, because we really didn't know what we were doing. And I don't think that was the case. And there was mention of my Survey Monkey, and yeah, I did a survey because part of me is like getting public opinion. It's the same when I did the community forum. There wasn't a big say like, okay, go Afros, do this community forum. I just wanted to do that. And so that was my effort to try to get public engagement, recognizing that this is coming to us as a yes city. So yeah, new counselor, learning the ropes. Everything's about talking to people, getting written in the paper all the time, and just trying to do the right thing here. So now we're talking about this ballot, and while we were zoning, it was very uncomfortable. I don't know if people were here during that process. I was always heated. I went home with indigestion. I just did not. It was tough because you had people not happy. We had people behind us angry with us. I had never been in that situation. And later on, I got emails saying, am I making backdoor deals? Do I want to be mayor one day? I mean, I've been taking all kinds of information and trying to be like, I'm just trying to do the right thing. I take my oath. Yeah, my first time getting sworn in to city council, I took my oath really seriously, that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform my duties in accordance to the Constitution of the United States, then the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, then our charter, and then our ordinances. So yes, I am trying to collectively look at my job as a city councilor, looking at my constituents, looking at everybody, whether I agree with them or disagree with them. So this is frustrating for me. It is. And you know, I'm trying to be nice and make friends here, and it's hard, you know, because we will disagree, but I hope we could all move on as a city, you know, stay unified, not divided on this issue. We talked about not talking about the pros and cons. I do want to talk about the pros and cons of marijuana because I think that is relevant regardless of where we go. We need to understand what we're doing to address many of the good issues everybody brought up here. So that to me is not irrelevant at all. But what is relevant to me is, and I think I heard it when we were talking about this during our one of our public hearings, is the concept that in 2016, what did we vote for? What was that ballot referendum for? And I heard and I recognized that some people didn't know what they were voting for. I voted no in 2016 before the Cannabis Control Commission was formed. Before a commission was formed by our state, I voted no. That commission is formed, and that commission is creating regulations. That commission is having public hearings all the time. Just because we want to do this ballot, take it back to our voters, decide if they want to ban, there are still public hearings going on by the Cannabis Control Commission. There's a joint committee on marijuana policy with House reps. So, you know, Jim Kelcourse, who's our House rep, we need to talk to him because they're also doing things regularly once they come back into session. In fact, the local controls aspect of what a Yes City can do is being actually promulgated by the Joint Committee on Marijuana Policy. I've never heard us talk about them, but these are important players. It's not just Newburyport. Yes, I look at other cities and towns, my mistake, but yes, I do because we're not in a bubble, and I don't want to be in a bubble. I don't want a wall around Newburyport. All these things scare me. So I'm sorry. For me, I'm so happy people are engaged. I'm really happy, and I hate being kind of touted as this bad pro-pot person. I don't drink for religious reasons, so for me, I'm not going to run to a pot shop. But I am going to do my job as being a city councilor at large. And if you guys may not know it, I got the most cities out of the city councilors at large. I didn't take any, I wasn't a popular kid in school, but I was really excited by that. But I gotta tell you, so I take it seriously. I know a lot of the opt-out folks are people I know, my friends, and I'm sorry. You know, I could just go along with them and life could be easy, you know, as I drop my kids off and we could all be happy. But again, I take my role seriously. And that's why I will vote no on this ballot question.
Councilor Eigenman.
Yeah. Okay. One of the counselors, the counselor at large, used the term earlier of a revote, and I think we have to address that right out. We had the city solicitor come to our meeting a week ago, and I put the question to him exactly, you know, who has the power to ban? You know, he said unequivocally and also 50 other cities that have had votes on this, that in 2016, whether we like it or not, the ballot measure carved out the issue of a ban. It did. It did not say, and you can never ban it. It did not say, and if your city votes for it, we're going to assume that you shouldn't be able to ban it. It doesn't say that. It set up a system where it delegates to the voters the ability to ban. Now, in fact, the ballot measure did not distinguish between cities that voted yes and cities that voted no. That was something that the legislature added later. They said, if you voted yes, then you can only go back to the voters. You can't do it at the city council level. I'm not arguing that. So be it. That's what they did. The only deadline, again, I'll say it again, the only deadline is if you voted no, your city council or your selectmen can go ahead and enact a ban without going back to the voters, so long as you do it by December 31st, 2019. Again, was not in the ballot measure. Legislature wanted to do that. So truly, I have to disagree with the counselor at large. The only issue is this something that merits going to the voters? Only the voters can decide this question. We did our job, you know, and we're all going to answer for it in the next election, which is we voted on zoning. And You know, that's life. That was our job. But that's the end of it. And I do not intend to campaign on either side of this. As a voter, I'm going to go vote if it goes on the ballot. But it was not left to us. We don't have the power to decide this question. And so by saying no, I'm not going to ask the voters, you're saying nobody gets to decide this question. And that's a very difficult thing to say. You know, and I have to rise and say I fundamentally disagree. This is a revote. It's no lawyer who's looked at this carefully thinks that. It's just not correct. So again, it's indicative, and we all can predict how we think the vote's going to go. We can all predict till the cows come home, and I think that was the point about SurveyMonkey, is that yes, we can do SurveyMonkey and guess that it will fail, it will succeed, whatever. That's not our system. Our system is to have a vote, and that was carved out, and very difficult to deny people the right to vote.
Councillor Genta, and then Councillor Tanter.
I just wanted to spend a few minutes and talk about how we got here. I spent a little time on Monday. We obviously have a bigger audience tonight. And other councils have mentioned it. We had a journey of zoning over the last year, which has upset a lot of people. It started in the industrial park, where we zoned for cultivation. We had an industrial park association that unanimously voted not to have cultivation in their industrial park. But it was zoned there anyway, with a few buffers. We've had 2 cultivators try to get into the industrial park, and one has, through maneuvering of his neighbors, was bounced out, and the other one has since lost its permit the Wednesday before Thanksgiving because his abutters sued him, and he lost in court. One of the things that we did for retail, we did for the industrial park, is we moved retail out of the industrial park, and that is what set this all in motion. First, we looked at the traffic circle, which got a lot of heads popping up. What's going on? For the first time, the residents were getting engaged. The vote on putting it down at the traffic circle failed. So then we had conversations here about putting it in the tannery and putting it downtown. And that is when the fireworks went off. And that's when this room filled, because people don't want it. And then we viewed, and again, I don't want to say it at the last minute, but we were at a time deadline to finish our zoning before we would have had to start all over again. And that's when Story Ave came into view. And that's when we zoned, and I hate to say it again, but 350 families into the zone, because we had to finish the zoning before a certain time. So for me to see a group of residents stand up and oppose this, I totally understand it. You're not happy with the zoning. You're not happy with the prospect that years from now you may have a pot shop downtown. I understand that. We got to this ballot question because people are unhappy with the decisions that we made. Unfortunately, as a councilor, the decisions we made, we were put in this position by the state and by the ballot question. We couldn't just do nothing, or you could have a pot shop basically in any place that's business that's not within so many feet of a school. So we had to do the zoning, but the reaction from the public and our business park members was enough to tell us we need to go to the ballot. Because we have a very unhappy populace right now about the decisions that have been made. And that's how we got here. So to me, it makes all the sense in the world to go back to the ballot and ask the citizens of Newburyport, what do you want to do? Do you want to have retail in your city, or don't you? And then it's a winner take all is what it is. So. And I hope people will support the ballot question, because I think the last year has proved to us this is how it needs to be decided. Councilor Argument said it perfect, that the residents have to decide this.
Councillor Tanter.
We're going to try one more time to convince you to refer this back to committee. And Councilor Devlin told me that that was in order. Because I'm not prepared to vote yes tonight on this. One reason, and some of the timing on this, I'll give a little different timing. 94G says that the council, all right, or a city, if it wishes to limit the number of establishments, goes to a vote, all right? So in our discussions, that didn't come up, all right? We kind of put that moratorium out there, but we never seriously discussed it, all right? We tried to perfect an ordinance which would allow it, all right? During that process, we got very little negative feedback on it, all right? And that's what we did. And we did bang out 8 votes for a compromise, which I thought was a compromise. In that process, a lot of people found out about it that didn't know about it before, all right? And I know the newspaper said, basically in the editorial said, tough luck to you people, you weren't paying attention. That's not my position, all right? You found out about it late. And then you organized. And I, as a city council, I have to respect the fact that so many people signed their name to a petition, all right, and asked us to do something. I also have to respect the fact that there are people opposed to that, and they only really got activated 2 weeks ago. And I met with them, right, because they thought this was done. Just like you didn't know, right, you folks out there that supported, that got the petition together, you got together on it, not last spring, but when you found out that we're working on this ordinance and it was a real thing, and question 4 allowed for a vote. Well, a whole bunch of people just found out in the last 2 weeks, right, that it might be, and they're unhappy. And so I would like to give them an opportunity to see if they can organize and express their opinion, right? So that's one reason for a delay. The second reason for a delay is, quite frankly, the petition. I didn't see the language in the petition until late last week, and it's not this language, all right? And I think we can fix it. I think the people who gathered those petitions, if you can get enough of them together to testify that we don't know why we use that language, but that's not what we meant, because that's not what it says. It's a ban on, and the city solicitor, you may agree or disagree, argued that what the language in the petition, all right, says that we will not have on-site consumption. If someone had asked me what should be in the petition, I would have told you, use the language that we're discussing right now. So I'd like to give the people who gathered the signatures an opportunity to straighten. Are you okay with this, with what exists? Because you actually got signatures on something that was very different. The third reason I would ask you to delay has to do with legal opinion. I do, one thing is a moratorium. Can we do it as late as November? We might have to change the date if we can't. I know that KP Law is involved in at least Brewster, maybe other communities that are in a situation where people are trying to stop retail from coming in after there's a possibility. There are lawsuits over it. I would like to hear from the city solicitor. First of all, are we exposed? And secondly, is there anything we could do to do this better so that we're not exposed? Right? So those are my 3 reasons for asking you to refer this back to committee. I'm not saying kill it. I don't want to have to vote no tonight, because I don't want to kill it just now. But I'm asking you to send it back to committee, give it a little more time, and I got to tell you, my wife is opposed to having a vote on this, but I said, if we vote tonight, we'll be done with it. And she said, oh, vote to put it on the ballot.
Exactly.
It's a joke, right? So I shouldn't have put her in that position. I apologize.
Councilor Earls.
It's getting late, so bear with me if I try to gather my thoughts here in a concise manner. A part of democracy allows for the will of the people, the will of the majority, but also allows for protection of minority. And let's say the 1,600 opt-out represents the majority. Well, I think I have a right then to represent the minority. Minority that might have thought that, you know what, it was a done deal. The city council worked for 11 months on this. It's going along as they saw fit. Retail sales located well. So now they're caught off guard. So let me represent them. I've also heard that, oh, it'll be such a little money. Really, will it be such little money? When we sit here for budget time, we have to think about a lot of different departments. We have to think about a lot. Okay, so we're thinking that, okay, retail will bring in anywhere between $100,000, $200,000, maybe up to $300,000 in tax money. That's not a lot, you're right. But look what the state's doing now. They're saying if we opt out, we may get nothing. And right now, as that sits, that formula would cost us between $600,000 and $700,000. Oops, that went up a little bit. So now we're talking about $800,000 to $900,000. That starts talking about real money. Why do we need it? Well, Amesbury and Salisbury have already said go ahead to this. I have two sons that went through the schools. By middle school, they were dating out of district, which means they thought that a lot of the people in their schools were like brother and sister. So they went out to Triton, they went out to Amesbury, they went out to Pentucket and found friends there. It's going to come in, they intermingle. So now how do we mitigate that? Well, we can't. We have no new money. We didn't open up anything, so we have to dig in, because now I understand we have to mitigate because of all the evils of marijuana. And if that's true, we have to now pull out of other departments and say, how do we mitigate? How do we get youth resource officer? How do we get more police? How do we do this? Well, we have no money. We would have if we just let the retail go through. Okay, now we're being so magnanimous. We're saying, oh, but it's okay to have medical. Medical gets us nothing. Medical has a host agreement. That host agreement, if there's no retail, you know what they can do? They can come in and say, you know what is your real mitigation needed? Do you need a police car? Okay, you get $50,000 a year, done. We get no sales tax. There's nothing there. So how do we mitigate that? How do you get it? And what's the difference? I'm sorry, what's the difference between retail and medical? You need a card. I can get a card tomorrow. You can get a card tomorrow. Anyone can get a card. It's very simple. You say, I have anxiety. You get a card. For good or ill, that's the reality of it. So now we have opened up medical in medical dispensary in Newburyport with no gain to us. Is that what we're looking for? I'm sorry. And in medical, you can buy more at one visit than you can in retail.
Indeed. Yeah, I want to respond to a couple comments if we're going into the second round here. So the first one, well, let me respond to the at-large counselor. Those are some impassioned arguments for how to vote on the ballot question, but not really addressing whether to have a ballot or not. So what's been conflated here is that somehow if you support a ballot, that your position is obviously that you support a ban. These are two different questions, and that does not address that. So as I said, we can go argue about marijuana until we're blue in the face, the pros, the cons, the money, the cost, the impacts. I'll leave that alone there. My second one is regarding our oath as counselors, pardon me. That's an interesting one. You know, if the Constitution comes first, then I think federal supremacy would probably be the first thing that comes to mind. So I remind people it's still illegal federally. So, you know, in that sense, we're kind of saying, some things are more important than others, you know, if we're going to go down this hierarchy of fed, state, local, charter, and then ordinances. So it is. I don't know why I'm getting odd looks. I think we can at least assume in fact that it is illegal federally. Hopefully that's not a debate. So you can take it from there how you want. And the final one is I just want to talk out this delay idea of not taking action on this tonight. I understand two of the arguments from the Ward 4 Council. I understand tuning the question the way it's desired. I understand mitigating any legal, but what I don't understand is this concept of another initiative coming in. I want to understand how that would create clarity that would change one's position on this ballot question. If a second ballot question comes in, it deserves the same due process and that this one received. But I'm trying to understand how a second one would change this one. So if a second one comes in, play it out, you mentioned, there's a petition going around not to spend, I think, was that correct? Not to put it to a ballot, I think was what was said. I've heard actually a few things. So let's say that comes in with 1,500 signatures. I just want to understand now what? What do we do? Do the 1,500 that say don't put it on the ballot beat the ones that say 1,500 that say do put it on the ballot? That's not the way our charter is written. Again, using that as, in my opinion, the gold standard. If you get 1,500, you put something on the ballot. So help me understand, because I've always been a proponent of getting things right, but I'm just trying to understand. I understand 2 of the 3. I don't get the last one, and I would love to hear more.
Thank you. Councilor Agaman and then Devlin.
Well, on the reasons, look, I think we already know 3 councilors are not going to vote to have the election. But just one last point on competing petitions. We don't usually have elections to decide to have an election. That's not usually what we do. So, for example, our citizen petition system in our charter, which we can't use because the city solicitor says we can't, it doesn't say, and if there's a competing ballot measure that says they don't like the other one, that you don't have the election. It doesn't say that. We do have a rule for competing ballot measures, which is that all of them go on the ballot, and then the one with the most votes is the one that wins. So that's how we do it. It's not that we say, well, people don't want it to go on the ballot, so we're going to ignore the rights of the people who do want it on the ballot. That's one. The other is my last argument. So Scott, when he called me, I said, don't worry, I'm not going to quote you. And he said, no, you can. So I'm going to. And again, he was adamantly opposed to putting it on the Amesbury ballot. And he said, it turns out that was the best thing they ever did, because it put to rest the controversy. And he thought that they were going to win in spades, and guess what? They did win in spades. So he's happy with the result. And that's all I want to say is that I still think this issue is controversy. I don't think it helps to squelch the question. Let's put the question out there. Let's get some resolution.
Councilor Devlin.
Right. I spoke earlier about tolerating other people's truths, and I do want to say it again, and especially here too. I think in the 3 years that I've been on the council, we've had some really excellent debates. Sometimes it's just the 11 of us and maybe 6 people in the audience and a couple people who are sleeping on their couch who have heard them, but we've had some really good debates, and this is one of them, and for that I thank everybody. Sort of along what I was saying about the French lawyer about respecting each other's truth, I had another counselor within the last year come to me and said, I've been making some assumptions about you, and I try to set my life where I don't make assumptions, and we had a pretty good conversation about that, and I'll take him at his word for that, and so we've got a close issue here, and the truths that we're hearing are not mutually exclusive, so they're not necessarily that you hold one side and I hold it on the other side, and there's no way we both can't possibly hold these and both be right. It's a matter of perspective. Respect the votes, my notes say pro pot, but the respect of the votes, have brought up some good issues. I think the first thing that the respect of the vote people are feeling are people who use marijuana. I have my brother and friends of mine and friends of his that I've known for years who have they use marijuana but they don't drink, and they have for years kind of been doing it in a closeted sense and with some condemnation of the society, and I can see where they're emboldened, empowered by being able to do it now, and want to protect every facet of that and say, this is important to me, and I want to be able to buy it at the Talbots across the street, and I want to buy it out of the Metzi's Cantina truck, and I understand that, and I want to shout it from the rooftops. They have a good point when they said it was a large majority margin of victory here in Newburyport. That is a valid point. They have a point when they said that it was a big turnout, and it's not fair to hold it in a special election when it's not going to be big. Go ahead. Oh, okay. Where the pro vote, the opt-out group, I think their concern for their children is unassailable. Anybody who questions that either doesn't have children or their children have moved out of the house a while ago, maybe haven't hit the grandchildren phase, but you don't remember what it's like to have your children in your house and be their protectors and be concerned about what's happening. And again, I don't sense that from a lot of people. Again, I've really been impressed with the tone. From the beginning, it's gotten much better and better. I've had some people tell me that one of the audience members, John Giordano, came to them and said, I want to hear your perspective. And then he quietly listened to hear their perspective. And they were very moved by that. And I think that helped with their tone as well, and that they came in a better place. So, I think there's a lot of things to be commended. One of the things that I think is sort of unassailable on the opt-out side is the idea that this vote at least was suggested. I mean, from a lawyer's perspective, this is painfully, poorly, and inartfully written. Okay, but there is something in here from the legalization pamphlet that we got from the Secretary of the Commonwealth. There's no less than 8 things in here in the summary that were proposed. And I, for one, did read them when I got that in the mail. Of those things, it's, number 1 was the legalization of marijuana. Number 2 was, being able to grow it and exchange it and give it to people. Number 3 was, grow a certain amount of plants. The creation of the Cannabis Control Commission. Number 5, it comes in at the bottom, and to limit the number of marijuana establishments in their communities is one of them. Number 6, how to tax the proceeds. Number 7, that these sort of marijuana-related activities can't be used against you in a child custody. I mean, important things. The problem is when you have 8 things presented and you're trying to convince a majority of people to vote for it, is that you might agree with 4 but not agree with the other 4. You might agree with 5, but those other 4 you might say, look, I'm not going to vote for this because I don't agree with those other 4, or I agree with 5, but those 3 others are really important to me. So what we did see in the ballot was the in favor and the against. And the in favor clearly says, and this is used to convince you to vote on their side. And one of the reasons they did this is there was 8 options of things that they're legalizing. The in favor said, local cities and towns can limit or ban marijuana businesses and will govern operating hours, locations, and signage. That, I think some people who originally got up, who were nervous about speaking and said, I didn't know what I was voting for, I bet you they want those words back, because that's not what they meant. I can tell you I didn't agree with all 8 things here. I am a lawyer. I did read it. I read the entire proposed statute. And I thought the details would be worked out at a municipal level so that I could vote for what I feel. And I'm going to go back to Ms. Gitling, because I thought her intention at our she left, but at our first planning and development meeting, where she got up and said, I'm going to try a different tact. Everybody raise their hand to what they do agree on. I think the vast majority of people would agree that we should have legalized marijuana. Nobody should feel closeted because they use marijuana. No adult, at least, and no, they should be able to freely consume and grow it in their backyard. And probably, I think the majority of people would say, purchase it someplace legally. I think if she had gone further, because she does have 2 children, if she said, how many people care for the children and in our community and want to see the best for them? I've heard the counselor at large say, I want to sit down with all of them and say, don't do what I did when you were below the age of majority to make this choice. So, I think we agree on more things than we disagree. I think we've come to a compromise that we can all live with, or certainly that it's reduced the acrimony of this. I think we can work out some of the other details, like how do we get from here to November at another time. But I will never say that people came into something late. I don't think there is a statute of limitations. I don't think there is a deadline. Whenever you found out, and I respect everybody coming in and voice their opinions. But there are some drawbacks to coming in at a later time, is that we can't solve all the problems right now. We can't solve the problem about what do we do until we can get to a fair place where we can vote. That's maybe, and I don't think we can solve it tonight. That doesn't mean we can't all say, look, I think you've reached a critical mass of people who are for this, and that we can support the idea of a ballot vote in November. What happens between now and then and how we figure that out, that's something that we can leave till later. I do want to say something about the timing as well. So I sat in, I'm not sure if it was an actual formed cannabis ad hoc committee. I did volunteer to be on it in a city council meeting, and a couple people afterwards, Councilor Cameron for one said, hey, thanks for taking that bullet for all of us. But I have my notes from February 6, 2018, and at the end, we were discussing, what two of us, Councilor Connell and myself, thought about the City Council's appetite and for this. And Councilor Connell said, I think it varies, but we went on to talk about we should do a ballot question, if we're going to do it, with the senior exemption special ballot and put it on there to make this convenient. So one of the things that I thought we reached consensus on there, which with other department heads, was that we would present and discuss all of these together. We would present the moratorium, we would present the ballot question, we would present the various zones where we could have this, so everybody could see it not in a vacuum like it was on the vote, but see it in its practical application and make a vote. It did not turn out that way. We did. It appears from the dates that we got everything into committee at the same time, but we definitely didn't discuss them all, as in detail. And I would just say that one other thing, what was mentioned in there was, in my notes, was the Kopelman and Page guidance, which was revised January 2018. And in several places it says, if a municipality voted in favor of question 4 on November 18, 2016, then 2 votes must be taken before an ordinance or bylaw can be effective. Approval by the voters at annual or special election, and approved by the local legislative body. So we were aware of this, and Kopelman and Page was aware of this and told us. So the idea that this is, I will go echo Council Eigenman, that this is a revote. It's not. It's part of the statute. We've known it's been part of the statute. This shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. Am I done? Have I covered everything here? Okay. Here's my note. Pretty lousy statute. Pretty lousy statute, which it is. It's inartfully written. But I will say the part that we've been discussing was in the initial proposed ballot before it got to the legislature. It's section 3, A, 2I. It actually works better if you read it backwards. I, 2A, 3, read it up. And it doesn't give us a mechanism for calling this vote. It doesn't give us a critical mass like I've discussed. So I think that's for all of us, for each of us to decide. Hopefully you'll decide, because in favor of the ballot, and here's why. A little bit of echoing what Councilor Eigenman said. If we say no, we're going to have a segment of our population that is really, really angry because they were denied something that is unassailably in the statute. If we say yes, we're leaving it to the voters. So we're not depriving the pro-respect the vote people, because they're going to have a chance to say their piece. They're going to have a chance to convince many people to side with them. And if we do it at a fair time, which I think was a major concession, not only do we save money, but we also make it so that it's as close to when it was voted on at the first time, as with the specifics. as it can be. So I'd urge you all to vote for this, because I think in a city of 18,000, these are the type of compromises that we have to make sure we're going to see each other. I see all of you people, every single one of you I see everywhere. And I want to be able to say hi, and I want to be able to chat on the corner without vitriol or animosity. So, thank you.
Councilor Earls.
I guess it's a little bit odd. If the no ballot people had 1,600 signatures, we then say, well, let's go to ballot because there must be something in the community that is not right. So it is a matter of a little bit of timing. So I have to go to the Council Ward 4. Maybe we do wait and see how many signatures perk up the other way. And now it isn't okay, vote yes or no. It's, do you put it on the ballot or not? That's the question. The no ballot people are not being represented. They're just now being told, well, now you get to vote again. So that way it is a revote to them. You get to now vote again. So you're right, to opt out, it isn't. But to some people, and it could be majority, I don't know, it could be a minority, I have no idea, no one knows really. But it isn't this yes or no, it's the no ballot people are not being represented. They're just saying, they're just being told, okay, now you get to vote. Now, going back to my part of city councilor, you're right, at budget time, I'm gonna have to worry about this. I have heard no answer of what happens when we do need to mitigate. What happens? No one's spoken about it. I've been quiet for 2 months now, waiting to hear, okay, what's the plan? There's no plan. So now it falls on us. So would I really open up a ballot that would make it so, oops, we have to cut departments? Something has to happen. That falls on me. There's going to be no more general election about it. That's on us. So wouldn't we now think very carefully, do we want to open up that Pandora's box? And do we not let the no ballot people not be represented in this discussion?
Further discussion. Councilor Shand.
So I'm not a lawyer. I will be brief. So, as I said last Monday, I do respect the vote of 2016, and I also said that I also respect the ballot. The folks that went out to put their names on a petition for a ballot question, but I also think voting in November is important, and I think it gives us a year to get folks educated. It's taken us a year to get as educated as we are, and we certainly don't know everything. So I think we've got a year to look at it, assuming this ballot question goes forward. So that's one thing. I also think we should, to what Councilor Eigenman said, Amesbury did put it back on the ballot. They put it back on the ballot in November. So November is a good time frame. The last thing I will say in response to Ward 4, I think we need to make sure this ballot question that we vote on is crystal clear. Because whatever we are putting out there now needs to be exactly what people need to be seeing, so they know exactly what they're going to vote on, so there's no question whatsoever. We won't have anybody saying, I didn't understand that. So I will say, if we are uncertain about the wording for this ballot, then let's keep it in committee and make sure we're all good with it, because not for nothing, if we do it in November, there is no fire. My 2 cents.
Councilor Vogel.
All right. I'll try to be brief. I'll look at the clock too. I'll start by saying that I'm particularly taken back by the direct assault by a fellow colleague on the floor and think it's out of order, but I'll ignore it. My biggest concern in going to ballot is the process, what I've watched and what I've heard. The language on the petition is particularly troublesome. It's not accurate at all, as we've discussed earlier. Thank goodness for my fellow councilors ahead of me. You're not going to hear nearly as much from me. I'll just reference that. So the language on the petition is troublesome. And then through the discussion, we've kind of gone through like the gauntlet, right? We started off by, the argument was save the children. So we did all that. And then it was, well, I didn't understand what I was voting for. And now it's, well, I know what I voted for, and I voted for the fact that we're allowed to have a vote. You have to really, 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 really dig deep into the 2016 language to find that. And I know that the people that have written that to me have been prompted. It's clear because you have to dig really deep. You didn't see that on the ballot question. You didn't see it. It wasn't there. And that referred to the fact that if we didn't do our job, and by the way, congratulations to all of us, by the way, we did our job. What was in front of us was that we had to zone. The process began with an ad hoc committee that was supposed to come back to us, I assumed, and report to us what they thought the way we should go. We should go back to the ballot. We should go back to the community and ask them if they want retail marijuana. We should just simply zone. These are the things that I was hoping that would come back so that we'd have guidance, and it didn't. That's not what happened. What happened was we went right to zoning. And I can only assume, and I live by the 4 agreements, and I try to make no assumptions, but somewhere in the minds of those people on the ad hoc committee were thinking, well, the majority of Newburyport voted in favor of legalizing marijuana. The next thing we need to do is zone. And the guidelines in the original language from the state was that if we weren't able to pull it together, if we were to zone one or less, or if we didn't want to zone it, then we would have to go back to the ballot. That changed again in 2017, July 28th of 2017, when they cleaned up the language. But that was the original language. So we didn't get any guidance. We zoned. We spent a year at it. And then not only that, not only did we meet and meet and meet, I made a request to have another meeting and was told, no, we've already voted on this. We have it. We don't have to go any further. So we felt as though we had enough information to go ahead and continue our vote on the zoning. So we did it. And then we couldn't come to a conclusion. That night, we voted, we didn't vote for the zoning. We said no. But guess what? Guess what? In our concern for the community, I'll hand it to the couple of counselors, the Councilor at-Large Earls and Councilor from Ward 4, Tontar, came back to us and said, you know what? Let's go at this again. And that came back to us. So we really do have concern for this community. We really worked really hard. We could have let it go. We could have had pot shops everywhere. Probably, as the counselor from Ward 2 indicated, that would have been a field day for attorneys. But we didn't do it. We zoned it. We did it. We did our job. We did our job according to what the guidelines that the state gave it. I'm concerned by the language that's come out over the last couple of weeks, really the last couple of months, since we've heard from the opt-out individuals. And I respect that. I get it. You're frustrated. You don't want it. But I'll tell you what, there's a lot of people that do want it. And I guess we're going to find out. The words, we're still calling it decriminalization. We didn't decriminalize it. Decriminalization happened in 2008. But still, that language is being used. And that makes me suspect. It makes me suspect that they don't understand what we're really looking at. And I don't, we also heard, and I wrote this down, I think might have been the first individual that spoke the other night at the last Monday night, spoke about pot shops up and down our streets. We zoned for 2 pot shops, 2, in one of 2 places in the community, 2 of them. The sky's not falling here, you know, that we zoned for 2 of them. They're not up and down our streets. They can't even be adorned. They're just buildings. You know, what is it, 10 Downing Street. You don't know what's back there. So those are my concerns. I really am very, very uncomfortable. I get it. I understand that there's a lot of people here that feel as though we're imposing something on them. I don't think we are. I think we did our job. I think we zoned it. I think we hashed it out over the course of a year. I think we need to put this thing to bed. The cards have fallen.
Councilor Tontar?
I just wanted to refer to the ward, to respond to the Ward 1 council very quickly. I want to give voice to the people who are opposed to putting it on a ballot. I want to hear their arguments. I want to see their arguments. I want to see whether that's a substantive part of the community. I'm just asking for a delay. So I'd ask the sponsor and the second of the motion to withdraw it so that we can test to see if there is sentiment for sending it back to committee.
Did the chair want to speak?
No.
Wise. Oh, really? No.
Councilor Zaid.
A couple of comments. This is why I wanted to bring it out of committee, because this is the discussion we needed to be having, so I appreciate it. The ad hoc did come out. There was a proposal that came out, and I think the biggest, in my opinion, I didn't sit on the ad hoc, but the biggest conclusion is this is a tough one. That's kind of what I took away from the ad hoc was, whoa, this is a tough one. As far as the zoning we did, I don't know how else to say it. If there were no public input to have a ballot, the zoning would stand. We're being told by residents who followed a petition process that we screwed up. You have to wrap your head around that. That's just how they feel. You can disagree with them, that's fine, but people are entitled to their opinion at the time when they have it. So I don't know how to reconcile those two things, is that, yes, we worked hard in the zoning, pat ourselves on the back, great for us, let's go have a cupcake. But you know what? People disagreed with us. So the third one is, to the at-large counselor about the ballot and the budget, I'm still lost about this. What happens if we don't go to ballot and the zoning stands and it's a disaster and we have to cut departments that way? What's the answer then? I just don't get how to draw a line from the budget argument to the ballot. That's what I'm not connecting. Tell me why the ballot question should, so this is the same kind of dichotomy I noticed with the arguments when we were talking about the zoning is, well, don't worry, the marijuana shops are very, very secure, and then on the other hand saying they're the same as every other retail shop. So it's like this dichotomy. Same thing with the ballot. You have to trust that residents knew what they were reading in 2016, but you can't trust them to weigh that exact same budget question you just said. My point is that the ballot question doesn't seek, our question about whether to put it on the ballot is it's deciding whether to put it in the voters' hands. It's not about, I mean, if it goes to the voters and a ban prevails and we have to cut departments, that's the will of the people. That's us. As far as the no people being represented, I think the Ward 2 councilor covered it. I don't know how I just think it's gonna, you could have two questions. I don't see any problem with that if there was some logic to having two. I agree that we need to have some clarity on what the question is, and that brings me to my final point, which is, to the Ward 3 councilor, what is wrong about the question language? I mean, I've read it 1,000 times. It calls out marijuana retailers specifically, which I think there was general agreement that there wasn't support to ban everything. That's one. And two is, it's not as concise as I would have liked, but I'm not seeing any defects with it. I mean, I'm just not seeing. So what's wrong with this question that we would want to change? That, and the at-large councilor said it's highly defective. So what's defective about it? It says marijuana retail shall be prohibited. I think the note about medical is very logical, because if you want clarity, you have to be clear. And we've heard time and again from different speakers that they're mixing the medical into this discussion, which is, in my opinion, quite settled and quite done. So I'm not getting what's defective about this question. If there is something defective, let's talk about that, if that's what the hang-up is.
I'll go back to Councilor Vogel.
Thank you. So I think the answer, if I may answer directly, the answer to the process is that we are a representative form of government. And whether we are liked or not for our decisions, we represent the community as on the whole. So we sit here elected. We're not town meeting. We're a representative form of government, and so we were charged with making that decision as to how to go forward. And so we went for it. And I think that my trouble is that late after a year, all of a sudden there is this rush to oh, I didn't know, or Save the Children, or as I said earlier. So that's my difficulty. This is an elected representative form of government. My concern about the ballot, I hope, please, that it says in big letters, bold, and I don't know what the process is for approving the ballot, but I hope it says a yes means no, and a no means yes. I really hope that that's on there. In fact, I don't know how to move to do that, or whether we're going to get another shot at looking at the ballot, or what it's going to be, but it better say that, because that's what got us here now. So a no vote means yes, a yes vote means no.
Councilor Agaman?
Yeah, so I'm the sponsor of the motion. I'm not going to withdraw it. I don't think where we gain anything. And I do think back to, it's been alluded to a couple times, when we were working on the zoning, there was, Councilor Vogel had asked for more hearings on it. And, you know, my point was, well, what are we going to achieve? And to Councilor Vogel's credit, when we did have an argument about that here on the floor and it went back to the committee, he was the only one who actually proposed anything. So he gets credit for that. Now what he proposed was downtown marijuana, and it was I thought it had already been clear before that we didn't have 8 votes for that. So try to remember how we got to this compromise on zoning that we did, is that I suggested the compromise. I basically negotiated against myself in order to get it done. So I guess that's one of the reasons why, you know, I said, said to myself, let's settle this November election issue. That's in there, so that's off the table. We don't have to worry about expense or fairness. You know, I don't think, respectfully, I don't think it's legitimate to say, well, if more petitions come in telling us not to have an election, that means we deny the people that do want the election to have the vote. So, I mean, yes, we are a representatives. We're elected to make decisions. But again, I cannot emphasize enough, we have no jurisdiction over this question of a ban. We don't have it. We don't have it. So in not having a vote, you're just denying people the right. So look, I'll take my lumps. I can already count 1, 2, 3, 4 and a half, you know, no's. But we've got to move on. We've got to move on. Now what you could do, you could table it and we could be right back here, but I'm sorry, respectfully, I don't see why you would send this back to our committee. I don't see why you would do that. And it's time to vote, and if you want to vote against it, that's fine. We need to get on with our lives here.
Oh, boy. Councilor Devlin?
Just one thing I don't want to leave hanging out there. We haven't had the zoning for a year. You know, the dates are on here, but I just described a ad hoc committee meeting that happened on February 6, 2018. Out of those, our zoning came. So we're talking about May and June. You know, it's been 6 months. You know, a little less than 6 months. And you know, look, again, I don't think this is dispositive of the question, but I just don't want to leave that for the people who are coming here. And I don't want to. I actually ran for city council because somebody asked me where I had been on an issue when I showed up to what I thought was the first committee meeting on it. So, you know, maybe we've inspired some people to run on both sides. I think differences of opinion help us run better. So anyway, I just didn't want to leave that hanging there for the last.
Thank you. Councilor Genta.
It's time to vote, sir. It's time to vote.
I think we've talked this out. I agree.
So point of order is a motion to table in order.
No, this
A
not.
member can make such a motion.
I move to table.
I'll call the question. Come on.
One moment. There is a motion made to table. Does this require a second, clerk?
Yes.
Yeah, it does.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
The motion is to table. Discussion.
There's no discussion.
No discussion on a motion to table.
None whatsoever.
Motion to table.
Roll call on the motion to table.
Motion to table the matter before us, which is a motion to amend, a motion to approve is amended. Councilor Junta.
It's the motion to table?
It's a motion
No.
to table.
No.
Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor O'Brien.
No.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tontar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Zede.
No.
Councilor Devlin.
No.
Councilor Earls.
No.
Councilor Agaman.
No.
Council President.
No.
7-3, 7-4.
Hold on for a sec. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So the matter before us, could you read
Motion fails. It needs
the
two-thirds.
initial proposal, please?
The initial proposal?
Go ahead.
We've amended it.
Well, the proposal on the floor is a motion to approve as amended with the date being November municipal election, and that is to approve Order 36, Version 2, which I read about 2 hours ago, I think.
I think it was just a quick point of order, if I may.
Just a moment,
Okay.
Counselor. So everyone knows what we're going to vote on.
Yes.
Are there any necessary comments members would like to make at this time? Councilor Vogel.
About the language on the ballot, do we get another look at that? How does that work?
It works, this would go on the ballot as I read it, as it is written by the city solicitor. I most often refer a matter once it's voted by this body to the city solicitor. I wouldn't in this case because it's already gone. I could do a confirmatory, but
Motion to amend. I'd like to amend it. I'd like to have that.
One moment, let him finish
Oh,
answering the
sorry.
question.
well, I was going to say your suggestion of a yes means no. That will not be on the ballot
It won't.
unless you put it on the ballot by a motion to amend.
Councilor Vogel.
Well, then I'd like to make that amendment.
Second.
Can you say the amendment? Yeah.
Yes, that part of the language on that ballot question says very specifically, a yes vote will result in no retail marijuana stores, and a no vote will, let me think of this real quickly, the zoning that's in place will prevail, or something along those lines. Sorry, my brain's not working.
There was a second on that matter?
Second.
Second. Discussion on this amendment.
Let me-
Councilor Zede.
You seconded that
I
motion,
did.
correct?
I thought you needed
And I
some
just wanted
clarification.
clarification. So I've written down a yes vote will result in,
No retail marijuana stores or establishments or retail marijuana, whatever the language is,
it's
in Newburyport.
Quote marijuana retailers.
Yeah, quote,
End quote.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
use
thank
the
you.
same.
Marijuana retailers in Newburyport, thank you. And
in Newburyport?
yes. And
No vote.
a no vote will change nothing. Thank you.
Where the zoning stands.
Hmm?
The zoning stands.
The zoning stands.
Councilor Shan, did you have your hand up?
No, it's just, nope, all set.
So, Mr. President, just so everyone's clear, so with your indulgence, if this passed, I would still send this to the city solicitor to make sure that your suggested language does not create a problem.
That's fine. But I just want to try to get there.
And I would go further to say, if he says, okay, then I would not come back to the council for a second vote.
If the amendment passes.
If the amendment passes. But that would be the process following it if the amendment passes.
Correct.
Point of information.
Okay. Councilor Devlin.
We have a second reading on this, right?
No.
No, it's an order.
No, we do not.
Sit down. Councilor Zede.
I think it's a good idea. I think we all agree that if we're going to do this, the last thing we want to do is repeat the mistakes of, frankly, of the past. So my only question for you is, are you saying you wanted actually yes to the word, next to the word yes, or are you inserting two paragraphs, two sentences after the final paragraph that says the yes vote shall result? And
two sentences.
In the summary, right? After the end of the
Yes.
summary.
Yes.
Is that what you were referring to? Because I thought you wanted it in the actual ballot, which I would support. I think it's, you wanted it in
Summary
the...
is put on the ballot.
In the ballot.
Oh, you want it in the summary?
I want it.
Summary's on the ballot.
I want it on the ballot, in the summary on the ballot. I don't care where it is, so long as it's clear.
Okay.
We go on the
So
summary.
I think what I just heard is,
Suggest a location and verbiage here? I hate to do this on the fly.
I don't care where it goes.
Then by
Okay.
default, I would think it would go in the
Okay,
summary.
should be yes or no is what I'm getting from over here.
He's going to reject it if you do
My
that.
suggestion to the clerk
You can't do that.
is that it
They
should
can-
go
they can
immediately
do what
after
he
the
wants.
word summary.
That's our request.
A yes vote, a no vote, and then,
Then the remaining summary?
yeah.
Okay,
Okay. Which leaves us at the bottom, a simple yes and a no.
okay.
Yes.
That's
That's-
fine. Thank you.
Is that acceptable?
Yes, thank you very
I'm
much.
sorry to interrupt.
No, no,
Okay.
no.
The
chair.
I'm fine with that, it's fine. Put it in hieroglyphs.
We have a motion to amend on the floor.
Hi.
Excuse me?
We have a motion
We
to
have a-
amend on the floor.
We have the motion to amend. It's been seconded. Discussion of the amendment.
Roll call.
Roll call on the amendment, please. Again,
Motion,
subject to modification for technical reasons by the solicitor. Is that the understanding?
City solicitor, yeah.
Okay. Roll call.
ready? Motion to amend. Councilor Junta,
Yes.
Councilor Khan,
No.
Councilor O'Brien,
Yes.
Councilor Shan,
Yes.
Councilor Tontar,
Yes.
Councilor Vogel,
Yes.
Councilor Zede,
Yes.
Councilor Devlin,
Yes.
Councilor Earls, Councilor Agaman,
Yes?
Council President.
Yes.
So now we have a modified, amended, I should say, version 2. And that was also further amended by the date of the election. And does that lead us, Mr. President, to a roll call vote on that?
I will ask for a roll call on that now.
This is the ballot.
This is on,
Colleagues, this is on the motion to approve as amended.
this is on Order 36 as amended. We have two amendments that have been adopted.
Councilor Junta,
Yes.
Councilor Khan,
No.
Councilor O'Brien,
Yes.
Councilor Shan,
Yes.
Councilor Tontar,
Abstain.
is that present?
Present.
Councilor Vogel,
No.
Councilor Zede,
Yes.
Councilor Devlin,
Yes.
Councilor Earls,
No.
Councilor Agaman,
Yes.
Council President.
No.
Needing 6, receiving 6, motion passes, the way I read it.
In November.
Now,
Oh, I'm glad we did that first.
Okay, go to the order? Okay. Get a drink of water, use the restroom.
Don't we have to extend our hours?
What are you going to do about Order 76?
Receive and file.
Extend debate.
Second?
Extend the hour?
No, extend the hour past 11 p.m.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
Motion to extend the hour past 11 p.m.
Second.
There's a second. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Did it pass?
It did pass.
Okay, could I continue my?
Oh, yeah, we can
Yes.
do this.
Please, get your argument.
All right. Yeah, well, a couple of things. First of all, I want to bring out the other version of the order, which was number 36, I think? 76. Number 76, motion to remove from committee.
Second. Moved and seconded on discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's out.
Motion to receive and file.
Second.
Motion to receive and file has been seconded.
Received, filed.
We've just taken the second ballot question out of committee. The motion is to receive and file. Seconded. Discussion. Councilor Tonto.
So, I'm correct in noting that this is the actual language that was on the petition, am I right?
On,
Yes.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Councilor Genta?
Yes, sir. So we took the ballot language directly off the petition that was given to Councilor O'Brien and I, and that was Order 76 to mirror that language. So we've all had it in our packet for a little while now.
Thank you. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? It has been received and filed. Councilor Eigenman, anything else?
Motion to remove from committee Safe Routes to School order, whatever number may be.
74.
Second.
Planning director has been sitting here very patiently. It has been seconded. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve as amended in committee. Did we amend it in committee? Yeah, we did amend it in committee. Yeah, we did. Motion to approve as amended in committee, and I will have Councilor Shand talk about what we said in committee because she is the sponsor.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
What now?
Second by Councilor Shand. Discussion. Councilor Shand.
So first, I want to thank the Preservation Trust for putting together their list of things that they wanted to have added to the Safe Routes to School project, which is basically making sure that we're following the Newburyport City sidewalk specs from 2015 and the June 2015 sidewalk specs, well, all the sidewalk specs in 2015. We'll leave it at that. We went through the 5 items that were requested regarding brick sidewalks and curb ramp treatment with the planning director, and 3 of those 5, they've already gotten approval from Mass DOT. Those included the carriage house entrance at 207 High Street, making sure the bricks are laid in the historic pattern, and one of the requests was to make sure that we had the correct brick that would be ADA compliant. So those have been resolved with, agreed on with the Preservation Trust, and the signage request as far as reusing and resetting the existing granite curbing, the pedestrian islands being cobblestone, and the rectangular rapid flashing beacons, and last but not least, the granite hitching post. All of these were agreed to with Mass DOT as far as making sure that they minimize the street signs. So how we codify that?
Yeah. If I may, through the chair, I'd like to have Andy Port read to you exactly the things that would be added to the motion.
So there are actually 11 things that are referenced, items or areas of interest that were referenced in the Preservation Trust letter. I'm just going to go through them briefly. Number 1 was where the curb ramps meet and abut the brick sidewalks, that the ramps themselves would be brick as opposed to concrete.
Well, you just do the ones that we can do. You don't need to cover the ones that we can't do.
Okay. Yeah. So the detectable ADA compliant domes on the ramps would be cast iron, so they're more durable. The bricks will be essentially as Styles and Hart, Boston City pavers or similar. We have the Mass DOT is going to submit the brick to us for review and approval, but because of procurement laws, we can't specify a specific brand of brick. We have to allow alternates. So in this case, it would be that or similar. The brick pattern on the sidewalk, we're still confirming with Mass DOT that that's something they can do based on their construction details. There's a request in the Preservation Trust letter for some old carriage house entrance, where the carriage house entrance is, the brick in the sidewalk has these patterns in it where the vehicle ruts would be. So
it's at 207 High.
207 High Street. And the Preservation Trust asked that those be reset in there. The issue I would raise is that the brick that's going in there will not be the historic brick that's there. It will be the new brick, obviously matches. So if they are put back in there, they would not match. They wouldn't be the historic brick anyway. The existing brick being salvaged, again, the office doesn't necessarily oppose to that. The issue there is that it would cost the city to do so. We've gotten an initial estimate of about $22,000 for that work because the contractors would have to segregate and separate those bricks out for us to salvage them. Public Services has made it clear that those could not be salvaged or reused on another sidewalk. So if we pay for that, the council and the mayor would have to appropriate funds, and it would not be able to be used by the city on a sidewalk project.
So that's not in there.
So that's not something, yeah.
Yeah, we did not put it in there.
One at a time.
Sorry. Signage, we've minimized the signage as best we can, and as recommended here, we're going to continue to work on that with Mass DOT. However, as discussed previously, once Mass DOT has finalized the project, regardless of what signs they've put in, we'll obviously be able to modify or address those things after. But right now, they've agreed to modify and reduce a number of the signs, and we'll continue to press on that with them per the Preservation Trust letter. The remaining items on that list we've already got Mass DOT approval on, which is the reuse and resetting of existing granite curbing, the one exception being the radiuses of the bump outs. Those may not be possible to do that way, but the others will be. The pedestrian islands being granite as opposed to concrete in those islands with granite curbing, obviously. And then the so-called rectangular rapid flashing beacons will have black ornamental bases and posts to be more in character with the historic district. And the last one is that any granite hitching posts in the project area will be preserved and reinstalled. There's only one or two of those, but over by the Tompkins Lane area, but those will be preserved by MassDOT as well. So, yeah.
Thank you. Councilor Agaman.
May I suggest that we authorize the planning director to give in writing to the clerk tomorrow morning the exact language, but is that sufficient to vote?
Thank you. So, so Richard, you get the chapter and verse from Andy.
Is that
my recommendation, however, is Councilor Eigenman, you or a designee on your committee who's familiar with those changes, make sure to get in and look over the clerk's shoulder so that he understands what you did and you know, what he puts into it comports with what the committee did. Is that fair?
Okay. By 8:30, Andy.
Councilor Tantar.
Can I ask the chair please to reverse this? Please tell me what on the list for the Preservation Trust you are not including, and could you also tell me why you're not including it? Why the committee?
I'll do it. I'll do it. Why the committee did?
Respond, Councilor Eigenman.
Yes. The first one, the curb ramps. The first question was, where curb ramps abut brick sidewalks, the ramps will be brick. And this is under the Newburyport City sidewalk specs that we adopted in 2015. The problem is MassDOT has affirmatively refused to abide by that. They won't do the work. It's not just that they won't pay for it. They said, we will not do that. We refuse to put in brick ramps. Now, just so you know, we have brick ramps right outside here on, so this is highly disappointing. But the position of the staff was, if you say no, you know, they won't do the project. That's their position. And so the committee took them at the word. I'm just telling you. The next one we said we couldn't do verbatim was our spec from June 2015 says Stiles and Hart Boston City Pavers. So as you heard from the director, that's a specific vendor. So what we're trying to do is say, or the like. We want it to look like that and be the same quality, but it doesn't have to be from the firm of Stiles and Hart. That way they're okay on procurement. What else? The existing bricks removed will be salvaged and stored by the city for reuse. Old brick is valuable city property and can be used in other projects. We did not require that because we weren't sure what the cost would be. $22,500 is the estimate. Testimony from staff was that once it gets bid out, we're stuck with it, that we can't take it out of the bid later. So if it comes in high at like 75 grand, we're stuck with it. That's what they said. I do think there's probably a possibility that we could work with the Preservation Trust and have them salvage the brick. That's just a suggestion. We didn't discuss that in committee. The rest of it we're getting. Signage minimized, all the other stuff you heard. Did I do that right?
Councilor Tantar.
Just on the brick salvage,
yeah.
I mean, we can't use it within the city, but could we sell it?
Yeah, we could.
If we can, sure. I mean, I don't know if that would be for sure. Can we get what the estimate on that would be? Can you?
I don't know how quickly we could pull that.
Yeah, I don't want it tonight, but I'm just saying.
By 8:30.
Councilor Z.
We'll still be here.
Yeah, so I want to rise in support of the project in general, but express my concerns. So I have a couple of concerns. I shared them with the administration, but I want to say them here. I don't agree with the way the language of the order is drafted, because to me it's an odd standard to say that we just agree that something is in its conceptual form deemed consistent with overall goals. That sounds a lot like substantially not more detrimental, which is like a weird thing we talk about all the time, but nobody actually knows what that means. My preference would have been that, you know, as we do with other public way matters, we approve them. I mean, we spend hours fighting about A-frames that aren't even connected to the ground. So we're doing this, in my opinion, in an odd fashion, and I mentioned this along the way. So I don't understand, you know, why we wouldn't. So my point is that I am going to vote on this, assessing it on that standard. My experience is colored by the rail trail, which recently came through my ward. And I'm grateful to MassDOT for money, but I can tell you that my direct experience is they're a sledgehammer. And they're very, very rigid. And once they get to 100% design, they don't want to hear from anybody about anything. Even as the project is happening, you're standing in a neighborhood and now you're fighting an uphill battle. And I've stood out on the sidewalk a million hours this past year dealing with that. So I'm not, my vote to support this will not be, it doesn't mean that I've read I tried. I suck at reading plans, I'm trying to get better, but I didn't review every single sign, like when I hear minimize signage, MUTCD, which I've gotten intimately familiar with, which is a desperately sad part of my life now, but manual of uniform traffic control devices is, put I-93 size signs every 100 feet is their preference. So that's the exception I take. Of course, the project is very logical, and I did read the high school seniors. I don't think it was a senior. Was a good letter, but I think there's something to be addressed here. So I just want to go on record as saying that's the standard by which I'm voting on this, and I think more will be coming once it gets going. I'm just telling the Ward 3 councilor, I live through it now, and things can be resolved, but it's way harder than you think once it's getting going. I just want to do what the plan says, even if as you started, it doesn't even look like it makes sense anymore in the field. So, and I appreciate the Preservation Trust trying to get an eye on those details because it's important.
I'm biting my tongue. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the Complete Streets proposal
as amended.
Oh, I'm sorry, Safe Routes to Schools, excuse me. As amended, Order 74, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Out of entropy. Is there anything else?
No.
Then we will move back to the regular order and take up appointments. Number 13 on your agenda. We already did that. Mayor's update, we're at appointments.
We did that too.
City council schedule.
Order 81.
So we have appointments in second reading.
We're done, we're in order.
No, we're on orders now.
Schedule one.
Please do.
Yeah, 81 is the city council meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're correct. Yes.
And it is an annual setting of the dates when the city council will meet for next year. Doesn't need to be voted on tonight, but it could be.
Oh, it could be? Sure. Motion to approve.
Second. Moved and seconded. Discussion. Councilor Seed.
Yeah, just a couple of thoughts. One is, last year we had this year, I guess, still this year, goodness. We had a debate about the 2 meetings, I think, in July. So that was one thing I wanted to raise now because some councilors sort of took exception when we terminated that meeting in mid-session. So maybe now is the time to have that discussion. And the second thing is that July 8th meeting, I just feel like is a tough date because the 4th is a Thursday before. And so out of respect for anybody who might want to go away for a few days, heaven forbid, maybe we want to look at that date. So given the hour, I would suggest maybe let's just sit on this and meet in January and figure it out unless.
Rules Committee? We can't?
How can we meet on the 14th?
Well, motion to approve January 14th and hold the rest. Does that make you? I'll see you on the 14th, but.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion?
He made a motion.
Yeah. And has it been seconded by Councilor Genta? It has been. The motion is to.
Well, I think it was already.
It was already a motion.
It was already motion to approve.
So I'll motion to amend that to selectively approve the 14th, and we'll take up. Do you want to send it to rules, or you want to just take it back up on the floor on the 14th?
I have no preference whatsoever.
Yeah. Just take it up on the floor. Let's just do it on the floor. It doesn't need.
Table it. So table in part, approved in part for January 14th.
Perfect.
Okay. That's done.
You have to vote on the amendment.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
1 no.
I have to vote on it as amended.
As amended, we have to vote on this matter. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Thank you, Councilor. Now we move to ordinance.
Doc, we haven't talked about this for a while.
This being a matter of second reading. Ordinance 26. Can I get a reading from the clerk?
Yeah, just a synopsis.
The summary.
Second reading. It is our Article 2 dogs. It changes the basically the late fees as mentioned and read last time.
Thank you, that's a sufficient summary.
Motion to approve on second reading?
Moved and seconded by Counselor Devlin, I believe it was. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor, we will take a roll call.
Correct. Motion to approve ordinance 26, second reading. Councilor Junta?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor O'Brien?
What the heck?
What? Councilor Shan?
Yes.
Councilor Tontar?
Yes.
Councilor Vogel?
Yes.
Councilor Zede?
Yes.
Councilor Devlin? Yes. Councilor Earl?
Yes.
Councilor Agaman?
No.
One no. Councilor Connell?
Yes.
One no, one what the heck. Motion passes.
Further committee items, let's go to budget and finance.
Motion to remove transfer 33 and order 78 collectively.
Second.
The motion was to take 33 and 78 collectively. Seconded. Discussion, hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? They're out.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
First of all,
Discussion,
I would like
Councilor
to thank the chair of the tree commission for hanging in here this long for this.
Disabilities.
And for disabilities. What'd I say, trees over there.
over there.
Right. Sorry. Disability Commission. I'm going to be really quick on here. The approval for the gift, $3,300, which was submitted by Jason LeBlanc on behalf of donors. They had a FundMe page. It was great. The Disabilities Commission matched it with $3,300. That gives approximately 2/3 of the sums that we necessary to put these in all the parks in the city. It's my understanding that everyone's happy with that amount right now to get it going, and then they might come back later for more requests. So it was a 2-0 in committee vote to recommend approval.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's done. It's done, Jenny. You're done.
Jenny, thank you. No, you don't have to leave. If you want to stay, you may.
The inn is open.
Yes, motion to remove transfer 34.
Second.
Moved and seconded, transfer 34 out of committee. Discussion, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's out.
Motion to approve, 2-0. $10,000 for emerald ash borer infestation. I'm going to cut to the chase. We funded some, what I refer to as injections or vaccinations to protect the ash trees. Last year, this is the second phase of it. If we have to cut and remove all the ash trees, it would cost $380,000. We have 136 trees, and I think the ash borer is as close as Groveland. And so it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. The second, $9,750 is to plant and care for 15 trees, $250 for the purchase of the tree, $150 to plant the tree, $250 to water and care for the tree for 2 years. The Tree Commission has had success, enormous success, less than a 1% failure rate over the past couple of years. And we have had 350 trees cut down over the past 3 years. And this sum of money will allow them to almost catch up, all right, to all the trees that have been taken down.
Thank you.
We recommend approval.
I'm sorry. I said I'm wrong. And this passed in committee?
Yes, 2-0.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is done. Thank you, Connie.
Motion to remove transfer 35 DPW gas.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's out.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Councilor Z. Councilor Conrad.
This is normal transfer necessary to fund gas. We do it all the time. 2-0 vote, recommend approval.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is done.
Budget and Finance is done, Mr. President.
Education.
Yeah, I can pass. It's 11:20, you know, so it's all good.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
General Government, nothing. License and permits.
Motion to remove Communication 98, A-frame life is good.
Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion receive and file.
Second.
Moved and second, receive and file. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Receive and file. Thank you. Neighborhood and city services.
Nothing.
No. Planning and development, we've already heard. Public safety.
Motion to remove order 72 from October 29, 2018. Second.
Seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Is seconded by Councilor Tantar. Discussion.
Motion to amend.
Discussion. Councilor Eigenmann.
Yeah, on your desk is an amendment. We had a meeting, as I promised Councilor Zoo, at the Parking Advisory Committee. And this is the results of that meeting on your desk. So the changes to what's in the packet are we specified better what we were talking about on Green Street. Basically, it's the block face between Washington Street and when you get to the Mission Oak Grill. That's what that's about. Also, Harris Street, that's just a typo. And then we added Pleasant Street from Market to Summer on both sides at Councilor Shan's recommendation. And Prospect Street, we specified that it's just the southerly side, and that was unanimous down at the Parking Advisory Committee.
Further discussion, Councilor Z.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment real quick. So I would like to ask if the parking clerk, just switch hats there for a second, would circulate the map that you shared with us. So we asked the clerk to make a map of all the parking restrictions in downtown so you can see it visually instead of just reading a list. The bottom line is when you look at the before map, more or less, say 90+% of the downtown, which is, let's consider bounded by Federal Street on one end, Market Street on the other, High and Merrimack, is almost all 2-hour residential, which means residents can park all day and all night as long as they want with a free parking pass that they acquire from the parking clerk. Those who do not have such a pass can park for 2 hours. And so the way I kind of look at it is this is closing up a few streets that sort of were stragglers that just were oddly not included, but were surrounded effectively by other 2-hour zones. The parking advisory, so that's one thing that would be helpful if you could see it. And I would ask if you could circulate it.
Update this map.
Yeah, and then send it out so you can see it, because once you see it visually, it's so much easier to understand. The second thing is, we asked the parking clerk if one of the things we debated at length at Parking Advisory, although nothing made it into here, is homogenizing some of the times. So we have all these times, like loading zones go until this time, residential ends at this time, paid parking now goes until 8. So we asked if we could put together a table hour by hour of the day that show when certain restrictions start and when they end. And I think that will prove to be instructive and helpful too, because one of the things we debated but didn't act on was extending the resident until 8 p.m. Because one of the things we were hearing is residents come home and they want somewhere to park, but there are implications for others who use that bridge from 6 to 8 p.m. essentially to get them into the nighttime. So just giving you a couple of things the Parking Advisory Committee is sloshing around, but that map will help you, I think. Further discussion. Councilor O'Brien.
When you tell resident, you mean resident of that street or any resident in the report?
That street.
That street.
I'll vote no, thank you.
Councilor Devlin.
Yeah, I have a question on this. We came out 2-0, but for discussion purposes, I mean, we didn't feel particularly passionate about this either way. But I have a question about. I thought we had discussed Harris Street. I mean, we're making it residential. There's like 3 residences on that street. I happen to have an office there right now, but I'm done after this month. So Harris Street now is both sides. It just doesn't seem an appropriate place.
Councilor Eigenmann.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I neglected to say, because you weren't at the Parking Advisory Committee. The irony of that is I didn't originally propose Harris Street. I got cold called by a lawyer, and she had already, I can't remember her name right now, but she had talked to Charles Naku, the dentist. She'd also talked to, come on, help me out. That's right. She talked to all the businesses, and I called the church, the Greek church. Their frustration is now people who don't work on that street are hip to the fact that they can park there all day and dump their car. So none of their legal clients or dental patients have anywhere to park. So they actually asked for this. And I think they're on the right track. Because 2 hours will give them enough time for their clients and customers to get in and out.
Further discussion?
If I might.
The clerk has something.
Well, a couple of quick points. It says XXX feet under Green Street.
Right.
And we had some discussion. We haven't got that measured yet. Sorry, we should have.
Yeah, well, that,
Councilor Agaman?
if people are uncomfortable with the videotape, we could say up to the loading zone of Mission Oak Grill, because that was the intent. How about
Yes.
that?
Yep.
Sure. Further discussion, Councilor Tantar.
Just for clarity, so the Greek church is fine with the 2-hour limit to parking on Harris Street? Yeah.
Well, let me.
Yeah.
Councilor Agaman? Yeah, I didn't actually get a call back, but I have talked to them over the years. For example, I sponsored a closure for them this summer when they were having their anniversary. They actually have off-street parking. I don't know if you know that. It's around the corner. And also, this doesn't apply on Sunday. So that's when their parishioners come and they need the on-street parking.
Further discussion, Councilor Genta.
Does it say here that Sunday is excluded? Am I missing that?
It's always included.
It's always, okay.
It's 13,178, right?
Okay.
Is
Just want to make sure.
180, sorry.
Yeah. So,
the clerk?
no, I just wanted to underscore the fact that, so then Harris Street would be in the residential 180 section of the code, so that any residents there can get a permit and park all day.
Correct.
But if you're a lawyer, you don't get that permit to park all day. Nothing against lawyers.
They are aware.
Okay.
Do they know the law?
You're a lawyer.
Something in your throat, Councilor?
Don't hold against me.
Too late.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Oh, that's me, isn't it?
Is there anything else in public safety?
Yes, very controversial. Motion to remove Order 79 from 11/26/2018.
Second. All those in favor of removing?
Aye.
Say aye. Opposed?
Motion to approve.
Amended.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Councilor O'Brien.
I just make a motion to add on to December 26th, so when they bring all their returns back, they'll have free parking also.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, it came out of committee amended that way.
That's what I was going to ask you that. Thank you. Good catch. And I might comment from the chair, if you'll indulge me. I had a conversation with the chamber director this afternoon. They're wholeheartedly in favor of this. He was unable to attend tonight to testify in favor himself. Further discussion, Councilor Devlin.
Yeah, it came out 2-0, amended to include 12/26, Boxing Day.
Yep.
Tom voted against. No, I'm just kidding.
Further discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Not be shouted. Public utilities.
Nothing tonight?
Rules Committee. Nothing. Good of the order. I have one thing, and I will be very brief. We recently witnessed the passing of a former president. And I just might add, in my observation, he was a uniquely dignified and decent individual, whatever you thought of his policies. He has set a tone for politics that is sadly lacking today. And I hope we think about the way in which we comport ourselves as we move forward with him in mind.
Here, here.
Just in terms of comporting ourselves during our break, I just want you all to know I received the text, which I could look at because we weren't actually meeting, that suggested now would be a good time to increase council salaries.
We'll take that under advisement. Accept the motion to adjourn. So moved. Seconded?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. We're done.